Okay, item number 1. Pursuant to Rule 25 of the Rules of the Council, citizens may address the town on one subject only. Said subject of substantive town business, neither discussed during the regular meeting nor related to personnel or job performance. Citizens may speak for no longer than 5 minutes and must submit a public participation form to the council clerk prior to start of the meeting. All items discussed during this session will not be voted upon. Madam Clerk, do we have any forms? It's got to be a first. In a long time. Okay. Now, these are the great things we like to do. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have a citation for the 8 and under Middletown Islanders Pop Warner football team.
Motion to begin said presentation.
Second?
And motion second to begin. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Before I present this to a great group of guys, did a stellar job for the town of Middletown. I want to ask Senator Luda Palmer to come up, because Senator Luda Palmer, like myself, years and years ago, were heavily involved in Pop Warner football, which I think is one of the best programs that's come along in a lot of years. So, Senator Palmer, you're up here with us. I appreciate that. I'm going to ask you, Senator, to grab the football that we're going to present, but don't grab the white because the paint's still wet.
And don't throw it. Don't throw it.
I'm going to get the coaches up here. Alan Medeiros. Alan, you're the head coach? Okay. Alan, how you doing? I understand the assistant coaches taught you everything you know, and they got you going. Come on up, guys. Assistant coaches, come on up. Come on up. Okay, and we also have a team leader. Is she here? Do you have a team leader? There you go. Come on up. Here's the real coach. I'll tell you, like I said, I started off by saying that Pop Warner football is a great program. I can remember a lot of years ago being heavily involved in it in Newport, and our team leader happened to be my wife at the time. She really ran Pop Warner. I was the president of it, but she really ran it. She did a great job. We had a number of different teams, from Pee-wees to the Bantams to everybody out there in the field. But tonight we're here to recognize a group of gentlemen that certainly deserve recognition. They accomplished what not too many teams have been able to accomplish over the years. They won the Rhode Island Southeastern Massachusetts Conference Championship. And I'll tell you, that's something to really be proud of, guys. And I'm going to have you come on up. Why don't you all come on up, too? I'm going to have you. Coaches, why don't you move down? We're going to try to get a picture of everybody. There you go. Anybody that wants to come up and take some pictures, go right ahead. Here you go, you can hold this. There you go. All right, and Senator DePalma, he has the football, recognizing your accomplishment. And I'll tell you, coaches, whoever takes possession of it, don't touch the white, because it's wet. I was told that they painted it several days ago, but I'm suspect on that right now. But again, great job, team. You're to be commended. Thank you. Say a few words?
What a year we had, boys. I mean, 9-0, champions. Nothing sounds better than that. Well, only thing left to say is get ready for next year. We're doing it again, boys.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, coaches. Thank you. Okay, we'll give everybody a minute to get out of here. Thank you very much. Congratulations again. Anything off the consent calendar? Consent calendar? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move item number 3 and put it behind item number 19.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Also have a motion to move number 16, the RFI, move it up next on the docket. We have a number of people that are here, a number of people that requested that it be moved up. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 16, memorandum from myself, West Main Road.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
Okay, motion and second to receive.
Could they please turn off the phones?
We have a motion and second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can we get those, could somebody shut the doors back there? Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Nate. Ladies and gentlemen, as noted in my my memo, my docket item, I'd like for us to revisit the RFI for the town's property at West Main Road and Cottington Road. This item was originally on the docket on August 19th, and at that time, some of the members of the council had concerns that we were somehow putting the cart before the horse, or that the RFI wasn't part of a broader process that included public input. I put this back on the docket for 2 reasons. First, I believe that finding new sources of revenue to provide long-term tax relief to Middletown residents is one of the most important jobs we have as town councils. I believe that this property, if properly developed, could provide that long-term tax relief while maintaining our quality of life. We have a good quality of life now, but that doesn't mean anything if our residents can't afford it going forward. Second reason I put this back on the docket was to make it very clear that a vote to approve this RFI is not a vote to develop the property. I'm going to say it again. A vote to approve the RFI is not a vote to develop the property. It's informational. It's simply an opportunity to gather information that could be used as part of a public process to decide what, if anything, we do with this property. And I think for $13,000, we can have a professional assessment of the development possibilities and potentials of this property, in addition to our existing master plan, is the right thing to do. Once we have this information and is brought back to the council, we'll conduct a series of public workshops that could be facilitated by the planning board, our administration, to solicit public input about the future of the property. During the special meeting that we had to solicit ideas on how to increase revenue recently, several residents came up and they mentioned the potential of developing this site. Frankly, it was one of the only ideas that didn't include increasing taxes or fees somehow. The property may also provide an opportunity to provide additional workforce housing through a mixed-use development, which is a real need in our town. Too many of our residents, this is an obvious idea that at least needs to be explored. So I'm committed to exploring this. I'm going to let the people, we have a number of people that want to talk in regards to it tonight. I'm going to let the people that came here tonight to talk about it, whether they're for it or against it, and I'm sure we probably have mixed feelings on both sides. And then I'll open it up to the dais. My intention tonight is to, upon the conclusion, I'm not going to officially do it now, is to make a motion to put this back, go forward with this RFI in conjunction with our planning board. Let the planning board, with the facilitator, the RFI, come up with some ideas, have public hearings. I know the concerns of one of our newly elected councilors was, and rightfully so, wanted to know if there was public input was sought. Well, back when we started doing this quite a few years ago, public input was sought. We had a number of public hearings in regards to this. And we spent hours developing a rough plan and then a final plan, and then later on, I think the third time, it was a detailed plan of what the public at the time would like to see there and how we'd like to have it developed. So tonight, after we listen to everybody, it's my intention is to make a motion that we go forward with this RFI, that we do it in conjunction with the facilitator, who will be the RFI, and with our planning board, have them weigh in with the people, have them have public hearings to solicit the input that everybody would like to put in this, and then come back to us with something that would be presented to the council. And I'm sure once it's presented to the council, because this council and every council that I've always sat on, and my colleagues have been up here with me for years, I know we'll be in agreement. We have been extremely transparent. We highly solicit input from the public. We go out there and try to solicit as much information as we can from the public, and we will continue to do so. So before any plan is adopted, that's surely what will happen. But again, this RFI is not the adoption of a plan. So, having said that, and we have a number of people, before I open it up to my colleagues after, I'm going to let the people in the audience, and I'll start with, I tried to write a list of the order that they were coming in, so hopefully I got the order right. First of all, John Bagwell. John?
Thank you very much. My name, John Bagwell, 587 Tuckerman Avenue. I'm here to support the proposal for an RFI that was basically presented last summer to the council, and it was turned down. But I'm supporting it with the addition of one major step. And that is that before the consultant goes to work, you'll have the results of the workshops that will be managed by the planning department. And I think that along with that, I think that the planning department should be instructed to come up with a time frame with some benchmarks as to what they're going to accomplish and when, so that we're not here 3 or 4 months wondering when the workshops are going to be completed. And that basically is, the proposal that was submitted really had 2 parts. First, retain the consultant, and the Fourth Economy makes sense because they're tied very closely to the Chamber of Commerce. They have much of the core data, no sense of reinventing the wheel. And the second part of that proposal was that the consultant would review and evaluate the results of the RFI. And I think that's important. But what I'm adding is that before this begins, that you have your workshop, bring in public input, and hopefully that will bring a majority of the council to support this so you can move ahead. I'm a member of MEDAC. We've worked with energy and enthusiasm on the Atlantic Beach District, and we're looking forward to applying the same energy and enthusiasm to working on the West Side plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Greg Hewitt. Greg?
Good evening. Greg Hewitt, 25 Olives Way. I'm here to support that West Main Road RFI. I was surprised when the council turned that down. There's a lot of opportunities on the west side for development, and we need to get some more revenue coming into the town. That's one way to do it. I think the west side has been underserved for a long time, and there are some opportunities for mixed-use development that I think would make a lot of sense for everybody in the town, but especially on the west side. That is fairly inexpensive. I think it was $12,000 that was turned down. The town has spent a lot more than $12,000 on other things that I don't think are near as important, but I think this is critical to moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Terry Cortfrin? Terry? Representative Terry Cortfrin?
Good evening. Thank you. Terry Cortfrin, 46 Mary Lane in Portsmouth, and I'm here in support of the RFI as a small business owner on the west side and a person that's been involved in the Portsmouth advisory committees. We've had various committees for development on the Portsmouth portion of the west side. I strongly urge you to consider and move forward with this. It's good for job development on the island, and I'd love to see a great mixed-use development show up on the west side. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Terry.
Representative.
Ashley Medeiros. Ashley?
Hello, Ashley Medeiros here on behalf of Connect Greater Newport and Fourth Economy. A few points that I wanted to talk about. A few weeks ago, I was here when we talked about the taxes. And we know data shows, national reports show that the best way to generate revenue is through dense mixed-use developments. The 2007 plan spoke specifically of a dense mixed-use development. We also know data shows that we have a workforce shortage, we have a housing shortage for both young people and those who want to downsize. And so this could be a great opportunity. When we look at this proposal, I think the biggest thing to really realize, and it was mentioned, that this doesn't mean that somebody's going to develop this land. The best thing is to know what a developer or multiple developers would propose. We can come up with a lot of really great ideas for that land, but if a developer isn't willing to do one of those great ideas, the land's just going to sit there and not going to be used for anybody. The other thing is, sometimes when you look at land, you look at where it is. It's on West Main Road. Everything around it is already developed. Conservation is so important to this island. Quality of life is why people are here. So yes, we want to maintain quality of life, but we want to do it strategically. This land isn't going to maybe add to the quality of life by putting a park there.
I have a 3-year-old. I don't want my 3-year-old playing on West Main Road. There are a lot of other parcels of land that make more sense. By generating additional tax revenue on this parcel could help you keep additional open space and redevelop land that makes more sense for things such as open space. And so those are just some points that I wanted to point out. And also, if there's any questions regarding the fourth economy proposal, I can answer those as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Lawrence Frank. Lawrence?
Lawrence Frank, 8 O'Donnell Road, Middletown. The West Main Coddington development land presents the town council with opportunities that will benefit the town for many years. The proposed use outlined in Mr. Sylvia's letter suggests a partnership with the developer. I would offer a different approach. Part of the RFI should include an estimate of the value of the land if it were to be sold or leased outright. The town would still have control over what type of development through zoning. The money realized could be used to purchase property elsewhere in the town. This property would not need to have the same commercial applications as the West Main Road land, and therefore would cost less. This property could be developed for affordable housing, something that the town desperately needs. The outcome would be as follows: increased tax revenue from the developed West Main Road property. Housing for long-term residents will also increase the tax base. Housing for families will improve the social fabric of the town. There are many advantages to having affordable housing, and the town should seek ways to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Art Weber. Art Weber.
Good evening, Art Weber, 145 Island Drive, also a serving member of the Planning Board. I'm a big supporter of this project, as I evidenced in the revenue hearing. I think it offers fiscal security for the future, and I think we need to support it. Back in 2010 and 11, I was on the Planning Board, and in anticipation of buying the Navy land, the Town's Council asked the Planning Board to look at what to do with the property. So we had a series of what you would call charrettes, or public hearings and public workshops. We came up with a civilian plan that had a consultant translate it into something that was more useful. That plan has been sitting in the comp plan for quite a while, and it's time to move ahead. I suggest we move a little more vigorously and thoroughly than just spending $12,000 to get an opinion of something. I think we need to hire somebody to do the whole thing. And what I'm talking about is a plan review, incorporating our new mixed-use ordinance, and taking a look over at South County Commons, where they have a mixed-use project that's very successful. That consultant would also organize with the Planning Board a series of public hearings and find out what the public wants. And when that's completed, that same contractor would put together a plan which would run through the Planning Board's approval and the Town Council's. And that same one-stop customer that's been working for us would be able to go out then and solicit development options for us to review and take a look at. The other thing I think we need to do with most of the things we haven't done, we need to identify in our planning process plans and milestones. And those are things the military does to identify an objective and a date put together. So eventually you get to a finish line with an objective that everybody understands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Senator De Palma, Lou De Palma.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Lou De Palma, 24 Sale Court in Middletown. I'm excited that you brought this item back to the docket tonight. Having been a member of the council, serving with the three of you folks back a bunch of years ago, when we began the process with regards to acquiring the Navy Lodge property back in some 15 plus years ago, and then when I joined the Senate, convening a meeting with Middletown, Newport, and Portsmouth with Senator Reed about some of the challenges we had over in his office in Cranston to try and figure out how to move it over the goal line. The town of Middletown made a great leap and big success with acquiring the actual Navy Lodge property. 3.5 acres on the corner there, total of 16.5. I think, in total for the entire piece from the Navy Lodge property all the way up to Kennedy School. As been said before, I'm not going to reiterate, Mr. President and other members, other folks who have spoken, the economic impact this can have to the residents of Middletown, the businesses of Middletown, from a direct, indirect, induced, I'll call it investment in the town, is going to be unparalleled. When the work is done with the bridge realignment, with the completion of Connell Highway, with the completion of the Coddington Highway, the gateway to Middletown, as it's been called at times, will be front and center when people drive up Coddington Highway. And that parcel of land, from a development perspective, and I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm an engineer, I'm not a developer, but the experts that will come forward and developers that will come forward and looking at this will bring forward those ideas based on several studies that were done by the town. And some of you folks sitting there were involved in some of those studies. So I went back and read some of the West Main Coddington Development Master Plan. That was from 2011. That's going to inform the $13,000 that I hope you'll move forward with that will be well spent. Such folks on that committee: Audrey Rarick, Charlene Cirillo, B.J. Owen, Gladys Levine, Mark Manane, Dick Adams, Jen Ecker, back in 2011. And then that also informed the study that was done, Middletown Town Center Planning Studies, in 2014. And I'm sure most of you have these. You've been on the council, most of you since then. And each of those, within the 2011 and 2014, Section 2 in the 2011 study talked about the community outreach and the many options there. Some phenomenal options there. Some I don't like, but then again, doesn't make a difference what I like or don't like for that matter. In the 2014 study, on page 17, quite a bit with regards to the various public hearings that were had on the various options. We are at a crossroads here. I think it's a real opportunity for what this could provide to the town. I think this will be money well spent. I believe the $1.3 million that you folks spent on our behalf, the town spent in acquiring that property, was critical. It is critical. The 16 acres there and what happens with the various parcels that are there, we need the input from developers, locally, statewide, maybe nationally, that want to come in and say, based on 2011, based on 2014, based on what's in the comp plan, based on what's in the zoning plan, this is what we believe, based on demographics and some of these various things, and you have some of the latest demographics and populations, based on those demographics and facts and data, it will certainly inform what needs to go forward. I'm already excited about, and I hope you move forward with this. You'll make that decision, but those options, those plans, those proposals that an RFI will elicit and solicit from the developers that are out there to say, we believe you could do this, this, or this. And from there, the residents are going to come back and say, we like that, we like a part of that, we don't like this, we like this. I'm glad you put this back on the docket for tonight. I'm sure there'll be some robust debate, I would suspect. It's a big deal for the town. $13,000 or $12,000 and change will be money well spent, and I'll stand right behind you with it. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Bob Silva. Bob?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Robert Silva, 8 Circle Drive in Middletown, Rhode Island. I am here this evening in perhaps 2 capacities. One is a citizen of Middletown, where I've raised my 5 children and 7 grandchildren, and it's a fabulous, fabulous community to do that. I'm concerned, however, looking forward, how the council, this council and councils that will follow, will be able to maintain the quality of life and the affordability of living in Middletown. And as my other hat, chairman of the Middletown Economic Advisory Committee, I've been sitting on that board, or that committee now, probably 30 or 40 years, and we go all the way back to the creation of the Aquidneck Corporate Park, which was known as the Aquidneck Industrial Park at first. And that's done a great deal to support the economic base, the commercial base of Middletown. This matter that the president has brought up again, I spoke and asked that it be done when we all met at Second Beach for a council meeting, and I didn't think it was appropriate to raise reconsideration at that time, but I'm delighted that the council is at least going to have an opportunity to hear this again. The West Main Connington project has been in the process many, many years. 2 studies, back in 2011 and then in 2014. But it's been sitting on the shelf. It has to be moved off the shelf as a concept and brought to reality. And the only way that that's going to happen is if you have a public-private arrangement and partnership. The town of Middletown should not be in and of itself in the process or in the business of creating developments. It should, however, leave the community in a position where those people, those developers that have the expertise, the capital, and the willingness to do a development and do it right under the rules and regulations of the town of Middletown, and if it's a public-private arrangement with the town council making sure that it's done the way the council wants, not the way the developer wants. But how do you get to that point? I quite frankly have looked at the plan with the new mixed-use zoning ordinance that allows residential to be put in with retail and commercial. Conceptually, that's an excellent idea, but it has not yet been applied to completion in any project in Middletown. This project gives you and the town a fantastic opportunity to implement the mixed-use ordinance, to include in the Connington area housing for the elderly, affordable housing, and retail, commercial, and office businesses. Whether or not the plan that has been provided and prepared by the town works, whether or not it makes sense to do it that way, to build it that way, and whether or not it can achieve financial success, I can't tell you that. And quite frankly, I'm not suggesting that the council has not worked hard on this, but the council is going to have to make some decisions going forward. And all this proposal does, this RFI, is to give the council the tools to make a decision on what, if anything, is going to happen out there. But unless you take this step, unless you have public charrettes, which I feel are very, very important to take place right at the outset of this, and gather that information and present it to the consultant, and then the consultant pulls that together and comes to the council and says, this is where I think you should go, and these are the individual companies that I think we ought to reach out to for their opinion. You might be surprised that none of what is being suggested in that plan is marketable or feasible. But other plans and other ideas might be forthcoming from people who are in the business of developing something that makes financial sense. The ultimate prize here is you got a piece of property right now that is not paying a dime in taxes. You're realizing no money from this. And if this council goes forward and spends $13,000 and hires a consultant to help you make a decision on what should or shouldn't go there, I think it's the best money that's ever been spent.
Thank you, Mr. Sola. Okay. Aaron Boyle. Aaron? Ma'am?
Who did you say, Chris?
Aaron.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. My name is Erin Donovan Boyle, and I'm here on behalf of the Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Executive Director, and we're here in support of this proposal. The importance of planned economic development cannot be overstated. particularly in a municipality or a community like this, where limited space for growth is currently available. This RFI proposal is a low-cost opportunity to gauge from developers appropriate ways to grow by asking them what the marketability of the property is today. Folks before me testified about all of the resources that you've already put into this particular property, all of the reports and planning documents that exist for this particular property, and also your investment in the Regional Economic Development Division, Connect Greater Newport, of which Ashley is here representing as well. Because of the investment you've already made into these particular initiatives, you can now leverage the expertise of Fourth Economy to build upon their data and knowledge of the area to get a low-cost contract to complete an otherwise expensive project. The Connect Greater Newport is a resource that the town of Middletown can utilize to help support projects like this. That is why Fourth Economy is able to offer this at such a low cost. Particularly, they are familiar with the area. They have studied the planning documents that were referenced earlier. They know the area and they also know the community, so they're able to leverage that expertise to just finalize this final component of putting this RFI out to gauge, again, from local and regional developers what the marketability of this particular property is. You've done and laid a lot of the foundation and the groundwork for what is needed. This is just the last mile so that we can determine how appropriate those plans that have been done 10 to 15 years ago are in today's market. Again, we also support public input in this process. Public charrettes are absolutely an important component of this entire process. Without it, regardless of what those contractors come back with, you need buy-in from the council, from the public. We certainly understand that. This is just one more data point to take into consideration as you determine how to move forward. I'm here and available for any questions that you might have. And again, thank you for the opportunity to testify this evening.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Okay, did we miss anybody, Madam Clerk, Vice President? Don't we miss anybody? Okay. All right, at this time, I'm going to open it up to any council members that would like to make any comments.
I would have a comment.
Councilor Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. So I thought that the docket item was actually incomplete as it was posted because it did not include the RFI from August. I had to do a little bit of research to actually find that to go review it again. So I guess for future reference, if something's being brought forward, it should be brought forward complete because I think a lot of people didn't even know what was being talked about if they just looked at the docket online. And I also want to clarify the August discussion. I don't think anybody here is opposed to economic development and the work that's been done. The conversation in August was simply that we have these master plans, and that's another point of confusion I'd like to clarify for the public. There's a couple of master plans that have similar names. There's the West Side plan, and then there's the West Main Coddington Development Plan. And this particular item is referring to the latter, the West Main Coddington Development Plan. It's from the old Navy Lodge property through the library, that area. So, I had to dig a little to get that clear in my head because I wasn't around and involved in that planning back then when this was all being discussed. But one of the things that I do remember, and this is where the cart before the horse comes in, is when it was going on, I was not on the planning board, not on council, not really involved, but the conversation was, on the street, at the fence, in the backyards was, oh, they want to move the library to the edge of town at Linden Park, or they're going to close the town hall and move it. And, these are kinds of things that people were concerned about hearing, not really being involved, not really knowing the background of some of these proposals that were being massaged. So in August when it came up, the comment was to let's get public input, now that it's been a number of years, and clarity and direction, so there's buy-in from everybody and everyone's aware, the town, the citizens, of what's going on. One concern about going right to developers with this RFI, and I'm not opposed to that. I think that I liked what Mr. Silva said and Mr. Weber about getting those charrettes going to give the developers current information with citizen buy-in, because you're going to get developers that are going to look at the RFI, in my opinion, and every developer knows what they do best. I think there are some developers that like strip malls. There are some that like affordable housing or mixed use. So you're going to have developers looking at this property. They know what they do best, and they're going to propose to Middletown what they do best, which may or may not be a good match for Middletown without first that public input. So then you've got the developers, they've got the public input as to what the citizens and the public want to see in their town. It may or may not be possible, but at least they've got that first, so then they can work around that and present something that's close and viable. That's all. So it's been sort of sitting aside, I think, for a misunderstanding. You know, we could have had this public hearing within the last 3 months. And so that's where I would like to pursue this path, but definitely with public input first, to make sure that the time is used wisely and we get a quality product for Middletown.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Anybody else like to make any comments? Vice President? Dennis?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Councilor Toronto?
No, I appreciate everybody's feedback. I think this is great. We need the support of the community. This is a parcel of land right now that we have an opportunity to paint what we want there. If we don't do it right, we might paint something we don't like. So I think it's important that we do update it. I spent a number of days in the comprehensive plan looking at this plan and all the things that the town has said they want to do in the comprehensive plan. So I think we need to look at this and see if that land that's there can help us with our comprehensive plan, maybe affordable living, maybe some additional recreational areas. I do believe that, we do need to look at it from a tax standpoint and additional revenue to the town, but I'd like to also see, what's going on with the current mixed use that we have and what's going on with the stores that we have today. And I'd really like to do more digging into this whole project because these plans do need to be updated. I agree with Terry. I'd like to hear the community's feedback first before we go forward with the $12,000 project. $12,000 doesn't seem like a lot for this size of a project. So I think Art was saying that in regards to that maybe we should be going a little bit fuller at this. So I would support continual conversation on this, updating of the plans that we have through comprehensive. There's been several plans put together for the west side, Coddington. I do believe that in a couple meetings, I was told that that plan wasn't carved in stone. That was something we put in place so that we could apply for that property. We weren't really sure what we wanted to do with it, is what I heard. So I'd like to, as Terry was saying, put more time into evaluating what the people of Middletown would like to happen with that property and how it supports our comprehensive plan. And then once we have that information, I think it is important that we hire a project manager to help us make this happen. So I'm all for, looking into developing it. I'd like to get the residents' feedback first.
Thank you, Councilor Toronto. Okay, any other councilor have any comments on that about what they want to make? Paul's still thinking.
He's still ready. Is he going to speak?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right, I'm frustrated, quite frankly, and I have put together, as I usually do, something that I read from and work and work and work so it actually says what I actually mean. And so if you'll bear with me. This is my 6th term as a town councilor, and I'm deeply disappointed with this council's overall performance. I have always regarded the town council as the leaders of the community, those who had a vision for the future of Middletown, and acted to ensure that it would continue to grow in substance and opportunity. Leadership is not easy or comfortable. It requires courage to approve actions that others might disagree with. It requires an ability to see the big picture and understand the difference between issues that are of limited interest and those that affect the entire town. I can appreciate that attention should be paid to those who care about litter and dog parks and pickleball, and that the council is willing to spend funds to repair neglected school tennis courts. But these issues, which have consumed huge amounts of time at council meetings, are not equivalent to the need for affordable housing, economic development in the commercial center of the town, and other monumental issues that have received minimal amounts of time and attention and insufficient recognition of their importance to the future of Middletown. We are fortunate to have a town administrator who understands the complexity of the town, while this council ties his hands and undermines the strategic planning of previous councils. By the way, I think there are 4 ex-council people in the audience today that provided a clear path to economic development. What must they think of us if we cast their work aside? Where are we going? Who are we? What do we want to be? Stuck in the past? Or a model for future growth? It's time to change our ways. West Main Road is the economic engine of this community. We need to grease the wheels, put it in gear, and drive it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Von Villis. Vice President? I'm sorry you're disappointed with the performance of this council. I'm not. I think this council's done a great job, faced a lot of issues. Just because we don't agree on things, to me, doesn't equal disappointment of performance or a performance issue. Just because, and I don't think it undermines what previous councils think. I know when I got off the council in 2008, got back on 2012, that's when I first saw this plan, and one of the versions of it. And at that time, I was told, you know, I asked the question, where did this plan come from? Previous council's plan. So what? People don't see eye to eye on issues, and people change, and issues change, and people's positions change. That's life, that's politics. That's the way it goes, that people have opinions. If everybody thought the same, then I would certainly be disappointed. Having said that, Terry, you said it perfect. I've been confused for years on this because was told that this plan only came about because we had to show the government, the Navy, that we had a plan in place to be able to obtain that property. That's what I was told when it started. Because yes, it did show the town hall over there. It showed the senior center over there. It showed a lot of other things over there that people aren't talking about. So I don't trust it, to be honest with you. If people have visions, everybody has visions. And furthermore, why does everybody think every piece has to be developed in Middletown? Why? Look at the bigger picture. Somebody tell me how long it takes to get down West Main Road? Right now in summer, without the old farm being developed yet, and without this piece potentially being developed? And believe me, I don't want to hear, well, this is just allow us to go forward with the potential what could be there. I've seen that plenty of times. And once that gate opens, it's gone. Believe me, there's plans in place, there's ideas in place for that. Am I for economic development? Sure am. Do I think we have to develop every single piece of property in Middletown? No, I don't. I don't think we do. I think there could be other uses there. So, I don't see any numbers, I don't see anything. All I hear is development, development, development. Show some numbers. We can project anything, right? There's a lot of smart people in this room that can do that. I haven't seen any number to back up anything that's written here. Not a thing besides it could sustain us long-term. Maybe it could. Then show me. Show me it could. And I'll raise my hand. Until then, I'm not raising my hand. Look at all the building that's going on. Millions and millions of dollars of houses on Tuckerman, on Paradise, on Indian Avenue, all over town. You think about the revenue that generates, the tax revenue that generates. Has that helped us? Maybe a little bit. So then move the library. What do you think the library is going to cost you? I was told that's worth about $1 million an acre out there. So if there's 14 acres, 14 million, right? Roughly. What do you think a new library is going to cost? 10 to 12 million dollars. So now what do you have? Maybe it depends how you structure a deal, I guess. You'll have some redundant, if you lease it, maybe you get something from that. I don't know. I want to see numbers. I don't want to just hear, we should do this because it could generate, okay, it could. Show me. And I'll be glad to do it. I've never held Middletown back, ever. You can't hold the town back, but there has to be a balance. And please don't say quality of life, because it diminishes the quality of life. It doesn't help quality of life out there. Why couldn't it be a park? And we're always looking for parks on the west side. Why couldn't it be a park? So I don't know. I'm not opposed to economic development. Show me some numbers. Let's find out what the people want. Last time when it got turned down 4-3, I got some pretty good feedback about, yeah, you're right. Why does it have to be developed? Why? Just because it could? Okay. Then, like I said, show me. So, and I'm going to use Mrs. Sant in Portsmouth. I understand Portsmouth, Terry, but Portsmouth doesn't want any development. They want everybody to come to Middletown. And that's a fact. So, there's some good ideas out there. Could it generate revenue? Sure, it could, but show the numbers. Let's not just say, hey, it could do this, it could do that. I don't make decisions based on it could or it should. I make decisions based on facts. So that's what I'd like to see if this thing's to go forward. I'd like to see some facts, and I'd like to see what they would do with the traffic, and know, based on the senior survey and affordable housing that we've done, the seniors do not want to be on West Main Road. They do not. So if this thing's going to get sold, sell it the right way with numbers and facts so we can make some good decisions. It's not, $12,000 for 13 is a lot of money, but it's not in this, I agree with Dennis, to this scope of this project. And again, I'm not opposed to economic development, but show some numbers. Just don't say it should be this, it should be that, and then we can make some decisions why it should or shouldn't be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Don't you love how conversations like this bring a lot of enthusiasm out of people? Councilor Santos.
I'd like to thank everybody coming out tonight. The weather's not going to be good, so we're going to make, I hope this meeting is going to be short so we can get home and start shoveling the snow. Let me give you a little bit of history. I call this piece of land God's Little Acre. Why? It's part of the Voigt Farm. The Voigt Farm covered from West Main Road to the waterfront. When the Navy came in, the Island Cemetery owned it, and the U.S. government purchased it from the Island Cemetery. At that time, on that little God's Little Acre was a little bungalow with a elderly gentleman living there. In the back, there was a farmhouse, a barn, and an outhouse. There is a picture of this in the hallway when the Navy started to build the anchorage. The Navy converted the house into a laundromat for the folks that were coming in who were living at the anchorage. Why I know all this? I was born in that house many years ago. Now, we're talking about development. Somebody called me and told me today there are 2 realtor signs on the property on Browns Lane. One is Frank Lawrence, and the other is another real estate. This is a property that the two brothers, the Greek brothers, own. They have that property up for sale. There are 2 signs there. We have 3 buildings on West Main Road that are empty. Papagino's, Ruby Tuesday, and Benny's. I've been told by a number of elderly people, and this is an elderly community. We're getting older. The young ones here, hopefully you'll all reach our age. They won't drive on West Main Road, as my colleague has said. They avoid West Main Road, just like I do. I only drive on West Main Road if it's an emergency. We have to stop and think. The Highlight property is going to be developed. What are we looking at when they develop? What is this property going to be? Senior housing? My colleague said they don't want to live there. The Navy Lodge, could that have been senior housing? Possibly. That was torn down. Middletown is great for tearing down buildings, historic buildings. Now, I'm going to jump around. We had a meeting a few weeks ago trying to generate trying to generate taxes. We had money coming in, $70,000 every year, that the town didn't have to do a damn thing. The billboards, they were torn down. They were well kept by the company. They were torn down. $70,000 and possibly going up. We tear down a lot of buildings, some good, some bad. How I feel about this, I don't know. I'm on a borderline. It's very hard to see our land disappearing. What's going to be left for our children? They'll never know what a farm is like. Will they know what a cow is like? No, I don't think so. So, do we have to take up every piece of land? What's going to be next? Is Paradise Park going to be next? Tear down the windmill, tear down Paradise School, tear down Weatherby School? We're great for tearing down buildings. What's next, folks? Stop and think. Oh, sure, bring in taxes. Bring in taxes, that's all we think about. Maybe we could spend less. That's all I've got to say.
Mr. President? Unless the President had a chance here.
Council Lombardi.
Well said. There's a lot that's been said tonight. A lot of good people that came in and brought up some good ideas and some good information, and I want to thank you all for being here. I believe that approving the RFI, to Paul's point, at least my belief is that that will allow us to get the information, that will allow us to bring the numbers in, that will allow us to update the conceptual plans, because those plans were just conceptual. They were people's ideas back then, but they weren't necessarily etched in stone. And I think at the end of the day, times change, ideas change, the economy changes, the needs change, and I think that's what we need to know to make an informed decision here. I'm all for having the workshops or the charrettes in advance, so that whether it's Fourth Economy, whoever, can compile that information, can bring that back to us, so that we as a council can make a good decision for what's in the best interest in Middletown. I am all for transparency. I'm all for doing what's right for the town. I just don't want to see somebody go in there and drop something that it doesn't fit. But when you look at the bridge realignment, as Senator De Palma said, and the completion of Cottington Highway, and you talk about the West Main Road Corridor Plan as opposed to the West Side Master Plan, really when you look at the concept, they're both connected. Because it's the west side, number one. Number two, that property is connected at Cottington Highway, and that's the West Side Master Plan encompasses from the Navy, the old Naval Hospital in Newport, all the way out to the tank farms in Middletown, all the way out Burma Road. And it's an all-encompassing on the west side of town. And this piece of property connects those pieces of property from Cardigan Highway all the way to Chase's Lane and to the Gate 17 access, where it goes down to Burma Road. It's all connected. It's the west side. It's what's in a name. Whether it's the West Main Road Corridor or the West Side Master Plan. There's a lot of work being done right now to update the West Side Master Plan, to add viable economic development and some possibilities down along the Burma Road corridor. If you're for that kind of conceptual plan, if you're up for the kind of ideas that might come out of that, then you have to be, to a degree, willing to at least listen. And that's all they're asking us to do right now, is to listen to what could possibly be down the road. I don't disagree with you, Paul. I don't disagree with you. I think there could be a public-private partnership where there could be some recreation there in combination with some good mixed use, and to do it right and maybe connect, instead of a curb cut on West Main Road, maybe figure out a way to enter it from Cottington Highway. So I agree. I don't disagree with you. I also will say that when you look at the empty storefronts on West Main Road, Ashley said this the last time she was here, I believe. You need to repurpose that stuff. That stuff is not, what was there then is probably not viable now. Maybe the Papagenos can be turned into some Class A offices. There are people out there screaming for good office space on this island. That's not bad. Those buildings may be empty, but someone's paying taxes on those buildings right now. Nobody's paying taxes on this corridor, on this West Main Corridor property. And that's the piece of it that bothers me more than anything, is that we need to have a vision. I said this once before, and I'll say it again. You know, when you talk about a vision, and Bob Silver's sitting here, and when the Navy pulled out and everybody was panicking here on the island, I was in high school at the time, and I remember, what are we going to do? How are we going to replace the Navy? Well, look around you. It happened. But people like Bob Silver had a vision for what that corporate park is today. And that's bringing revenue into this town. I don't know what it would have been otherwise. I don't know. Maybe it would have been a farm, Mrs. Santos, but it's not.
I know.
You know, I know we had 29 farms in Middletown. I get it. I know that. I grew up near a dairy farm as a kid in Bristol. I get it. But I'm telling you that the people who came before us had vision for that piece of property. And in my opinion, they did it right at the end of the day. And it's on us up here to do it right. But put the RFI out there. Let's get Fourth Economy on board. Let's have the public charrettes ahead of time before we do anything. And then listen to developers. And then make an informed, intelligent decision. That's all I want to see. And for $13,000, you're right. We've spent money on a lot of things up here. But this council, and the council I've sat on for the last 3 terms, we have been fiscally conservative. I consider myself a fiscal conservative. We have done a good job. I'm sorry, Mrs. Von Villis. But, you know, for some of the disappointments, I think in overall, for the 6 years I've sat up here, Paul, I agree with you. I think we've done a lot for this community. We don't always agree. We're not always right. But that's not for lack of caring about this community. Every person up here, whether we agree or disagree, care about this community. So at the end of the day, I think spending the $13,000, whatever it is, 12 and change, is not a bad idea. I think not putting the cart before the horse, get the public in here. Let's hear them. But let's do it, and let's get it done, and let's move forward. We've got great planners. We've got a great planning board. The only one thing I'm gonna say is if we move forward with this, I want a deadline. Because there are things that we've been talking about since I've been here 6 years that are still sitting on the burner, that are upsetting me. We're still waiting for the overlay district down in the Atlantic Beach. Don't ask me why, but we're still waiting on it. We waited forever for the mixed use process to come out, and then we went back and redid it. I don't know why these things take so long. And I'll tell you, I'll use it as an example. Look how quick the Veterans Memorial got done when there was an impetus to do it. And I'll tell you, it was important to me to get that done. But we moved pretty quick on that. And we need to give them a deadline, whether it's the planning board, and say, this is how, 60 days is what I'm thinking. Get it done. End of January. But we need to move on this.
We need to move along right now, too.
No, that's all right. You know, everybody's having their say tonight. I'm gonna get mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Council Flood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question for Mr. Brown. I was reviewing the VHB master plan. They were the first ones that did it. And, you know, really, they came up with a few great scenarios for that area down there with trees and elbow room. And, you know, they really gave some thought to it. 3 different scenarios that I read. I went through it relatively quickly. You saw how thick it was. But I was just wondering, I think I read that money was set aside for this to, you know, to be developed or to, you know, go through the process. Is that true?
Yes.
And so we have money, it's dedicated money just to do things like this, whether it's 12-5 or whatever it is, to help move this along, get the information we need to come up with something that will work and be viable that the citizens want.
Correct. The council at the time set aside money on the town's balance sheet for that purpose.
Okay. Now, who did this RFI for Fourth Economy? Do we know where that came from?
It came from the administration, so we presently work with Fourth Economy. The council works with Fourth Economy. We basically partner with the other communities to hire Fourth Economy to promote economic development within the region and also within Middletown. So it was logical to the administration to reach out to them to work, you know, and seek a consultant to help us put the RFI together for this project. And I think part of that was discussed tonight. You know, they're familiar not only with Middletown, the plans that have come up over time, and been working with us for the last 2 years in promoting this, promoting the town's economic base. But again, also there's an accumulation of data that puts them in a position to quickly put together a document to get you know, different developers in here to discuss what are the potential options for the town. The one thing that we've talked about tonight and we touched on in August was the charrettes, getting the public in and adding that input.
So, you know, there does seem to be, after listening to everybody and my fellow council members, there is obviously a desire for economic development. You know, there is a need to, whether it's to see this through for our past councils or to create more income for our residents. An approval of this particular next step, whether it's the RFP, the charrettes, whatever, it's not saying we're going to do development. So it seems that if the planning board could execute a charrette public hearing, get that data, and then work with, you know, this RFI rather, perhaps, you know, based on that information from those public hearings, for viable ideas that, based on market trends, something that would actually work and generate, along with the elements that the public has said, whatever it might be, open space, parks, whatever, and have those, you know, maybe this Fourth Economy, they work with the developers since tax rates are different for commercial and residential. And I know VHB, they did address traffic, but the developers that should be part of it. What would the tax revenue be? What would the traffic issues be? VHB did touch on those in their first planning documents. And I think that, you know, information is power. It doesn't mean we're tied to it. And I just think there is a desire, you know, you hear that out there. So I think so long as we got that information so that they're not wasting their time and they go forward from there, it does seem reasonable to me.
Councilor Toronto.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, Terry, well said. I'm in agreement with that. I think that we should have public meetings, update the plans that we currently have the planning board come back and say, okay, we updated, we got people's feedback. This is kind of what people are thinking. We could do a survey to the people. We do the surveys all the time. We could do a survey. What would you like to see happen on the west side in Coddington? Get people's feedback. Have planning take a look at it. Update the documents, the plans that are out there. Come back and present it with some hard numbers. And if they're, you know, I think that would give me more insight. And then I would feel more comfortable moving forward with a product manager, which I think will be a bigger than $12,000. So I support what Terry's saying.
Okay, any additional or repetitious comments want to be made up here? Okay, let me.
Just
Go ahead.
the traffic issue, Terry?
Yes,
When the state, they used the state traffic plan.
the
When they-
VHB did.
The town, I guess that's what they provided them. I'm not sure if they used it or not, but that's what I was told, that when the Coddington was being looked at to be redone, the state, which was,
Was that the
they used-
2011
they used
Aquidneck
the-
Island traffic
they
plan?
used that traffic plan. They didn't use, they'd have to look at something completely different now because of this
They are.
Connect Newport. I mean, it could potentially send a lot more traffic that way. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
All right, let me give you some realities. Okay, we talk about speculations, misconceptions, mistrust was even said tonight. Let me give you some reality. We have a piece of property out there that generates 0 tax dollars. 0. It does generate income, though. We leased the building out there for $200,000 a year. Not bad income. Doesn't even maintain the building. We take that money and we use it for, it's not even part of our operational budgets. It's part of our one-time expenditures that we use to do the extra things, to take the impact off our taxpayers back. Reality is right now, we just had our JFK school looked at. The roof needs a new roof at a cost of in excess of $1.1 million. The interior of the JFK needs work. Conversations I've had with Mr. Brown and his staff, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that needs to be done out there. Our library, it's in dire need of a lot of work. When I talked to Mr. Brown and some of his people, estimates, ballpark estimates were, and Mr. Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, $750,000 to $1 million?
Correct.
That's reality. That's what we got around the corner. So, we want to maintain it. We don't want to think out of the box. We don't want to look ahead. We don't want to spend a mere $13,000 to collect some data. And that's what it is. You know, we go off on these tangents. I just don't understand it. You know, Councilor Flynn says satisfying past councilors. Really? How about satisfying taxpayers of the future? People, and I applaud Councilor Santos. She wants to maintain farmland. Farmland isn't going to generate the revenue that we need. It's going to come right down to the taxpayer again. This council and councils before us have done very, very well in deferring the cost by being disciplined, by being frugal, but by maintaining a high standard quality of life in this town. You cannot say, I don't want my taxes increased. But, on the other hand, and Council Flynn has said it, I want to give money to the schools. We all want to give money to our schools. But how do you do that? How do you generate revenue when we're looking at the demographics of our town? And let's be serious. It's bleak. Population is going down. It's getting older. It's bleak. So we have to think out of the box. And to collect the data that this RFI would collect, or we believe it would collect data that would help us make long-term decisions, is nothing compared to what could happen down the road if we don't do something. To sit back and procrastinate, let's wait another 2 months, let's wait another 60 days. I'm not saying not have workshops, because nobody likes workshops more than I do. But I will tell you this, you keep waiting and budget time comes up, and we're sitting here counting pennies, trying to fund departments, trying to fund our future, and at the same time, trying to think of our taxpayers and their quality of life and how we're going to keep them in this community. It's not an easy task. This can give us some answers. This could give us some possibilities. I said this twice at the start of the meeting tonight. This is not a development obligation. This is a request for information. And for $13,000 to be put in conjunction with some workshops, just to bring back some potential possibilities to us, is something that it should be a no-brainer. And I can't believe we've had this much discussion on it. I just don't understand it, for the life of me. If you ever ran a business like this, you'd be out of business, believe me. Because you have to think ahead. You have to look at your capital expenditures ahead. You have to look at the future. And the future for Middletown is not robust economically. It's bleak. Let's make it potentially robust. But we can't do that unless we make an attempt to solicit as much information as we can. This total, or let's have a, I was talking to a council earlier tonight. I'll never support another subcommittee on this council as long as I'm here. Because every time it goes to a subcommittee, it falls off into a dark hole someplace. And it sits dormantly while time goes by. We talk about not getting things done. Half of the things that we haven't got done have been sitting in subcommittees. This has to get done. This council has done a lot. This council and the councils before us and the councils that we've sat on together have accomplished a lot. And we're proud of our accomplishments. And we've done it every time by trying to solicit as much information and data as we could to support our decisions. And we need this RFI. We need this to know what the potential is out there. To leave that land out there would be an injustice to everybody. We're continuing. We just developed 2 more open fields in the old drive-in property for our youth, so they have a place to go. Off West Main Road, so a 3-year-old isn't running around near West Main Road, like was brought up earlier tonight. But we have to look to the future for everybody. Everybody in town. And to do that, we have to explore potential possibilities and ideas. And this RFI, it's my belief, would help us do that. So, we got a lot of things on the docket tonight.
I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
I didn't mean it. If you're done.
No, go ahead.
Okay. First, I just would like to ask you a question. Why are you opposed to having a public forum before going out?
That is not what I said, Counselor. Don't put words in my mouth.
No, I asked you why.
I said originally at the start
why do we
of this-
need to approve the RFP tonight before we have meetings?
I said we can make the RFI. It's not an RFP.
RFI.
It's an There's a big difference. And
Okay.
that's why I think some councils need to get educated on some of this. There's a big difference.
Excuse me. Trust
So-
me, I know what an
All right,
RFP
all right.
is, and I
So
know
you
what an RFI is,
So
okay?
they're two different things.
Right.
Okay, right?
Right.
What I'm saying is this, okay, without being combative, why can't we move forward with both of these together?
Because I think there are people on the
Well,
council
then
that
you
would
vote
prefer
that way
that way.
because I think we gotta get going on this.
Okay.
I have no qualm about a workshop, having workshops that come back and bring the data back.
You know,
But we have to get these people.
It sort of
on board.
reminds me a little bit of the unification. I know that's gonna cause a lot of riff.
Well, we
But
have- that's on
the
the docket
unification was kind of the same thing. We need to move forward and form a committee and just so we move this
Councilor
thing
Toronto,
forward.
that's on the docket for later. That's on the docket for
So
later.
I'm just saying.
Can I make a motion?
Go right ahead, Councilor Flynn.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that the council requests that the planning board hold a public hearing to get citizen input on uses they'd like to see on that land area, and that we approve this RFI to go forward utilizing the information gathered to come up with viable development ideas based on market trends and the citizen charrettes, to give us the information we need of what could go there, from which we can also determine real numbers and traffic challenges.
I'll second your motion. Any conversation? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Madam Clerk, did it pass or fail? Passed. Okay, thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the people that showed up here tonight to talk about this. Okay. Item number 4. Please. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Santos has a docket item. Docket item is number, help me out, Madam Clerk?
18,
18?
correct.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion that we go to item number 18.
Second.
Yeah, motion second to go to docket item 18. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, memorandum of Council Santos, RE, Boy Scout Troop number 3, restoration of Middletown Historical Cemetery number 30.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
And motion second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I understand there's going to be a presentation, Council Santos. You want
Yes,
to
there is. The young man is here. He's going to make the presentation, sir.
come on up, your name and address, and
I am Jack Hallett. My address is 406 Sem Street. I am a Life Scout of Troop 3, and I recently did my Eagle Scout project. It was a cleanup, restoration of stone walls, and recording of gravestones in Graveyard 30, Stoddard's Lot. I used Troop 3 came out and did all of the work, and I am going to, and I have a presentation to be shown here.
great, thank you. And congratulations on your Eagle Scout accomplishment. Are we ready?
Are we set? So, I have to go.
Okay, why don't you walk us through this as you're going?
There are words on the screen.
Okay.
So, the cleanup restoration documentation. The four pictures. That's what we'd use to clean it up.
What a great job.
Very quickly, there are a few people that I would like to thank. My Scoutmaster for Troop 3, Mr. Flynn, was very helpful. My Eagle Scout project mentor, Mr. Ellerman. I was also helped by Mr. Chuck Tatucci and Mr. Tom O'Laughlin, and Troop 3 assisted, and I was also helped by the Middletown Historical Society. And then I'm going to present this documentation of what was recorded.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President,
Councilor Santos.
Jack, may I ask you a question? Did you find, was there a possibility that some of those some headstones were missing?
We were updating an existing record and from earlier, and none of them that we didn't find any that were newly missing. They were all had been missing for a long time.
I don't know whether or not your mother has told you, there are some gravestones downstairs in the Paradise School that have been there for years. We don't know where they came from, whether or not they're from a historical cemetery or what, but they've been down in the cellar for a good many years. So sometime, if you want to come down with your mother, take a look and see if possibly they could fit on one of those spots that have a stone missing. Okay, good job.
Thank you.
Excellent job. Great job. Thank you very much. Okay. Item number 4, communication of Councilor Toronto, requesting an update from the town administrator on where we are in discovery process of merging the Middletown School and the town maintenance, finance, and IT departments.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second?
Motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, this was a project that we approved, and I was just hoping Sean could give us an update on where we're at with the study.
Very quickly, I provided the council a memorandum that answers the specific questions that Councilor Toronto asked. As far as the status right now, the council authorized the engagement in August of 2019, and at that time, I had briefed you that it would take approximately 120 days to complete the work, 30 days to spin up the project team, 90 days to complete that work. I had a meeting last week to discuss a number of matters with the consultants, and I was advised at that time I should see a draft report by mid-December, so in the next week or two. So at that time, we should start to have a conversation about the findings that have come forward, and to answer or ask questions, answer some questions in order to finalize the report so that we can consider how we may implement the recommendations that come forward. So it is progressing well. To date, just so everyone's aware, we have fulfilled numerous requests for documentation and information. Those have been all fulfilled and shared with the consultants. We've hosted a site visit with the consultants, which included tours throughout the town, as well as meetings with the different departments. And the departments themselves have had numerous follow-up interviews and calls with the consultants over the weeks that have occurred since the site visit. I provided a listing of the different people that are involved, and they are people really throughout the department and all of the different departments, from the finance and business offices to each one of the department heads and some staff that are responsible for taking care of the buildings, as well as the IT staff. The feedback I've gotten all along is that the employees have been cooperative. This is somewhat of a touchy topic, but everybody has been extremely helpful and responsive. And as I said, hopefully in the next few weeks, we should start to have a discussion about the final recommendations. And we are on schedule. There's no change orders.
Councilor Toronto?
Yeah, just, you did give me a list of the people that were working there, and I know you said town departments, but you did have Rosemary Kreger on there, but I didn't see much representation from the school. Is there
So-
involvement from the school?
The school department is a town department, so,
Right.
you know, and I think that's something that we have to recognize, especially since we're looking at consolidating like functions. Cindy Brown is the school's business manager, Dave Fons is the facilities manager, and Sean Bojan is the school's IT director. They've been part of these meetings that we've held.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President?
Councilor Santos?
Mr. Brown, with the consolidation of the school departments, I'm concerned with the facilities. Will they be moving to the Public Works Department?
I think
Has that
that's,
been discussed? I'm
that will
sorry.
be part of the recommendations.
All right,
That's a matter that's under consideration, so.
Okay, that being the case, what's going to happen to Oliphant School?
That, again, is not something that we've discussed. I think once we have the final report, we'll be able to have that discussion. It's not only the facilities department, but there may be space requirements of some of the other departments that we're considering consolidating, so I think waiting for the final report would make sense.
Would you please keep me posted on that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Toronto, thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sean.
Motion to act as a Board of License Commission.
Second?
Okay, motion second, act as a Board of License Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Board of License Commission, item number 5, public hearing, advertise, application of the Royal Plaza, LLC, DBA Portofino Bar and Grill, 425 East Main Road, holder of a Class BT alcohol beverage license to transfer said 2019-2020 license to Middletown Tenant, LLC, DBA Portofino Bar and Grill for the use at the same premise.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion second, open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is open.
Mr. President, members of the council, for the record, Robert Silva from the firm of Silva, Thomas, Motlin, and Offenberg. We represent the Royal Plaza LLC, which was recently sold, and it was sold to the Tenant LLC, DBA Portofino Bar and Grill. This is simply a request to take the existing license from the old corporation to the new owner's corporation. Nothing will change. It's just a technical requirement that the license be held by the new owner.
Any council have any questions?
Yes, please.
Councilor Santos? Yeah, I'm gonna ask that.
Mr. Silva,
Yes, ma'am.
who owns the building now?
It's owned by the successor in title, the Tenant LLC.
So the brothers do not own it
No,
anymore?
the Kirikitis brothers have no more interest. They've sold that.
All right, thank you.
Just as they sold their interest in the mainstay in Newport. They're no longer the owners of those two properties.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Vice President, do you have a question?
No, I just had the same question that you pointed out earlier, so I know it's another thing, but
A BT liquor license is what?
BT is for a hotel.
Hotel, strictly, but that's a full bar?
Yeah.
Full bar. Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience like to make any comments? Ask any questions? Okay, seeing none.
motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
And motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to grant said license.
Second?
Okay, motion is second to grant said license. Any further conversation by any members of the council? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, there's one other item, number 11. It's simply the transfer of the victualling house license in conjunction with this. If the council could address that at this time, it would be much appreciated.
Well, we're a Board of License Commission.
Yeah, we can't right now. We're a Board of License Commission. We still have another. We're acting as a Board of License.
We have one more, Mr. Silva.
We have one more, Mr.
One
Silva.
more.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, number 6, application of Better Weather, LLC, DBA Better Weather Diner, 47 Valley Road for Class BBL liquor license to be used at the same premise. Requires advertising for public hearing and notice to abutters.
Motion to receive said application, notify abutters and advertise for public hearing to be held on December 16, 2019.
Second, in
Okay.
question.
Go ahead, Council Santos.
I'd like to ask someone who can answer it. Is this building up already? Is this building been built to acquire this liquor license?
It has not been built yet. It's been approved by the Zoning Board of Review, and my understanding from speaking with the applicant's counsel is that if this liquor license is approved, then they will acquire their construction loan and begin construction of the building. So if you were to issue, and that can be a question that you would ask at the public hearing, since it's just on for advertising today, but you have the ability to issue the license subject to the building being constructed in accordance with the approval from the zoning board.
So we're issuing a license
Yes.
before the building,
You would be approving the
Building
license. The license would not actually be issued until the,
has it ever been
until
done?
the,
Has this ever been done before?
I don't know if it's ever been done before. We did double check, both under the state law and the DBR regulations, and it is something that the council has the ability to do. And my understanding, and once again.
I gotta be honest with you, in all the years I've been here, I've never seen it done like this.
And it may not have been. We did research it and certainly determined the council has the ability to do it. My understanding, from once again speaking with the applicant's attorney, is that the lender that's providing their construction financing, in order to give final approval for that financing, wants them to have the approval for the liquor license in place.
Mr. Regan, is the applicant or the applicant's attorney here tonight?
He's not here tonight. I think he had another matter in Newport, and
Really?
it's just on tonight for advertising, so my suggestion would be that you just put it on for advertising, and then these would be questions that you could ask at the public hearing.
And I have one more question.
Council Santos.
Somebody clue me in 47 Valley Road. Where is there a place to put a diner other than Mr. Alan Shear's property?
No, on the other side of the street.
across
Council.
The other side.
It's across the street. It's
Across-
next to the realty office.
It's the old chamber, oh.
Now,
Next to the
Oh,
realty
the-
office.
Oh, that small piece.
they're gonna share a parking lot with the realty office. You're gonna go in off of,
Mr. Solicitor, I have a lot of problems with this. I'm gonna tell you the reason why. I understand the hours of operation are gonna be from 11 in the morning to 10 at night.
Those hours of operation will be set by the council during the public hearing process. So,
I'm more inclined to postpone this tonight and have the attorney or the person come. We can do it part of the public hearing, but at the same token, I just don't like the way this whole thing's going.
well, it's just on tonight for advertising.
Oh, I understand
okay?
that. I understand that.
It's been to the zoning board of review, gone through that entire process, got approval for the construction of a restaurant with a liquor license.
All right.
And the reason it's coming to you at this point in time is that because it's not an existing building, it's a building that needs construction, the lender is requiring them to have the approval, just like you would need zoning approval before they
All right.
they go ahead and proceed with
Okay.
that. And questions about hours of operation, I would suggest that those take place during the
All
public
right.
hearing as
All right,
opposed to prior.
gotcha. All right, we have a motion, it's been second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion to reconvene as a council.
Second?
A motion second to reconvene as a council, all in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve the consent calendar minus number 9.
Second?
A motion second to approve the consent calendar minus number 9. All in favor?
Aye.
Memorandum of John Shea, Executive Director, Quinnick Island Planning Commission with enclosures. Report and update on AIPC activities and finance.
Motion to receive said memorandum and report.
Second?
A motion second to receive, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Council Toronto?
Yeah, didn't know if there was someone here that can answer a couple questions.
Mr. President,
Council Lombardi?
I sit as a liaison to the AIPC. I would suggest that we move this, or put it off and have Mr. Shea come in. That way he can, John Shea, and answer any questions you may have.
Sure.
There isn't anybody here that can answer any questions for you
Okay.
tonight regarding this.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
You want to put that in the form of a motion?
Motion to continue.
Motion to continue and request that John Shea be present at the next council meeting to answer any concerns you may have.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item number 11, application of Middletown Tenant LLC, DBA Portofino Bar and Grill, 425 East Main Road, for victualling house license for the 2019-2020 licensing year. This is new.
Motion to grant said license, subject to building official, fire marshal, and Board of Health approval.
Second?
Okay, motion second to approve. Any conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All set, Mr. Silva. Item number 12, application of Olga Polz, Portsmouth, for a Body Works personal license to be used at Charming Nail Spa, 957 West Main Road, for the 2019-2020 licensing year. This is new.
Motion to grant said license.
Second?
Okay, a motion is second to grant. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 13. Ordinance. An ordinance of the Town of Middletown. This is the second reading. An ordinance and amendment to the Town Code of the Town of Middletown. Title 13, Chapter 130, General Offenses, repealing Section 130.02, indecent intoxication. See attached ordinance.
Motion to adopt said ordinance on its second reading.
Second?
Okay, motion is second. Any conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Other communications. Item number 14, communication Richard Adams, President, Citizens Exploring School Unification with petition, which is on file in the office of Town Clerk. Request the council to reconsider their previous decision and authorize the creation of a joint Middletown-Newport committee to consider creation of a unified high school.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second?
And motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Adams, we have a number of people that want to talk.
Dick Adams, 240 Island Drive, Middletown. Mr. President, members of the council, thank you for giving us the time to address you tonight. My purpose in addressing the council is to draw your attention to the petition CESU submitted asking you to reconsider your refusal to discuss school unification. As you know, CESU has been asking Middletown citizens if they thought it was reasonable and useful to discuss with Newport unification of any or all of our school systems. Specifically, we asked the citizens if they agreed with the statement. We, the undersigned respectively ask the Middletown Town Council to reconsider its decision and authorize comprehensive, non-binding discussions of school unifications. Based on our experience asking their opinions, it seemed obvious to us that a great number of our citizens agreed that shutting off all discussion was a mistake. About 1,000 citizens signed our petition. All wanted to discuss the possibilities. For the most part, our citizens wished to explore all options for improving our schools and did not think consigning our students to a small and declining student body in an increasingly obsolete school building for the foreseeable future was a wise decision. As you know, CESU has co-sponsored with Newport this week 2 well-attended public forums on the subject of school unification. I hope you have had the opportunity to review the videos of these events since they provided points of view and information which you may not have previously considered. Especially relevant are comments by the Massachusetts school administrators who have experienced school unification firsthand or are now leading consolidated schools. As you know, Massachusetts has some of the highest performing schools in the country and has a robust incentivized school regionalization process which Rhode Island would do well to emulate, or at least to learn from their experiences. Middletown's school problems are not unique. What is unique is our unwillingness to look beyond our borders and address them using all available information. In a long ago and far away time when my sons were in the Middletown school system, they interacted little or not at all with Newport students. Based on our discussions with parents and students, that is no longer true. Our students now participate in consolidated sports teams and organizations and events. They are not afraid of diversity and working with kids who do not look like themselves. In short, they are not afraid of school unification and welcome the expanded possibilities. In summary, after asking the citizens of Middletown to sign our petition, I am convinced that the majority supports school unification and will support your decision to discuss unification possibilities. I sincerely hope you will do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet McCarthy. Janet?
Good evening, and thank you very much to President Sylvia and Town Council members for allowing me this opportunity to address you and this assembled group tonight. I am representing Citizens Exploring School Unification and my fellow Middletown citizens who have signed the petition respectfully requesting that the Town Council reconsider its decision and authorize comprehensive, non-binding discussion of school unification. The signatures of nearly 1,000 Middletown residents and taxpayers serve to dispel the myth that Middletowners are not interested in gathering more current information about school unification. I address you tonight from a unique perspective as both a longtime Middletown resident and taxpayer and a career educator. I am a product of the Middletown school system. I graduated from Middletown High School as one of the first classes to go from grade 7 to 12. In 1961, when Middletown High School opened, it was considered a state-of-the-art facility with a cutting-edge program that was recognized in an article in Time magazine. My husband and I chose to raise our children in Middletown because of the quality of the schools. My children graduated from Middletown High School in 95, 96, and 2000, at a time when the school's enrollment supported a comprehensive course of studies. During my career, I taught at Thompson Junior High, at Gaudet Middle School, and was a school counselor at Middletown High School until my retirement. After retirement, I filled in as a school counselor in Tiverton and an interim assistant principal at Rogers High School. In addition, I worked for the Department of the Navy as the school liaison officer for military families working in all of the Newport County schools. I know the local schools from every perspective, and I believe that there is reason to study the benefits of school unification for our children in our community at this particular time. Since the 2014 referendum regarding school unification, state funding has continued to decrease. Student population is shrinking, and a per pupil cost is rising. In the past 5 years, things have changed enough for there to be a new study. Both Middletown and Rogers High Schools are finding it increasingly difficult to provide a program of studies that addresses the educational needs and interests of an increasingly diverse group of learners. We owe it to our children to explore every avenue necessary to provide them with the state-of-the-art 21st century high school, which would offer a variety of courses and programs that both inspire and prepare them for future careers. My many years of teaching and counseling young people have taught me that there is great potential in every child. It is our responsibility as a community to provide each student the education that helps them reach that potential. Over the years, I have seen wonderful things happen in every school that I have been associated with, whether as a student, a parent, a teacher, or a school counselor. Public education in both Middletown and Newport has much to offer. However, Due to program cuts and few elective courses, some students are left frustrated and uninspired. Let's ensure that we have done all we can as a community to support every student. Previously tonight, I heard a lot of people talking about a vision for the future and how to enrich our community. Personally, I think in a vision for our future, we should think very seriously about creating what was created for us in 1961, a state-of-the-art facility with a program that was nationally recognized. I think we need to think out of the box, which is what I heard somebody else say tonight. And I feel very passionate about this. I've seen it, I've lived it, I've watched it. I'm a convert. In 1996 or 2000, if you had asked me about unification, I would have said, no, it's not necessary.
Janet, I have to ask you to wrap it up, okay?
Okay, well,
Thank
I'm
you.
wrapping it up. Right now, I think it is. So we, the people signing the
Meaning
petition.
your time is up, Janet. It's been up for a
Okay.
while.
Thank you very much.
I have a question,
I have
Mr.
32
President.
seconds here, but that's it.
The red light's on. I don't know why you...
I have a,
It's going the other way. You've gone over by that much.
Oh, sorry.
I do have a quick
Council
question for
Toronto.
Thank you for speaking to us tonight. I was just curious, did you present to the school committee of Middletown?
No, I haven't been asked to present to the school committee.
You asked to come present here tonight?
Yes, in support of citizens exploring school unification and the 1,000 people who signed the petition.
But has anyone gone to the Middletown School Committee from this association and spoken with them?
The school committee members have not attended our meetings to speak.
But have you gone to the school committee meetings like you're coming here in front of us? You can get on their docket as well. Does anyone from this association that you formed talk to the Middletown School Committee?
Well, the school committee is not the people who are going to either say yes or no to this, as Greg said.
Well, I asked the question because I think it would be good to speak with them because we haven't heard what their opinion is on unification. There hasn't been any public statement of what the Middletown School Committee thinks of this. I do know that Portsmouth did engage, and then their school committee got involved, and the school committee said they don't want to do it. Now, I think is it fair to say that Portsmouth, as the council, is still exploring it, but the school committee in Portsmouth is not receptive to it?
Well, they're exploring certain aspects of it, but not the unification process. And again, if you take a look at what we're asking for conversation and more information. More information about it does not mean that.
Janet, I have to stop you.
Okay.
Okay, it's a council rule. If I let you go over, and you've already gone way over, even though Councilor Toronto engaged you in conversation, I have to do it for everybody else, so.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. I
Thank
hope
you for your
understand.
feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Anton Viveras, Mr. Viveras.
Anton Viveras, 110 Indian Hill Road. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Mr. President, I have been opposing regionalization since 2011, basically because of the law, Chapter 16, which takes away your right to govern for the people of Middletown. If the a regional school district wants an extra $1 million, you have to give it to them. They can also take people's property to eminent domain and evict people. And the people, will, according to that statute, the people will lose the right to sue. You talk about increasing the availability of increasing the curriculum. According to the research I've done, it may increase the curriculum maybe 17%, but only 5 to 7% of the children take part in it, actually benefit by it. Another thing is they say it's going to reduce cost. The regional school districts always reduce costs. The impetus for K-12 regionalization is to reduce expenditures to increasing fiscal efficiency and eliminating duplications of services at both the central office and in school. Central office administration services include superintendent, assistant superintendent, administrative staff, custodial service, building management, transportation, business services, and grant administration. Education services include principals, assistant principals, coaches, special education services, English learning services, and teachers. Potentially, both economies of scale, cost reduction, and economies of scale, cost increases possibly when reducing school districts. Economics and scale must be achieved by reducing central office staff, reducing school staff, maintaining fewer buildings, completing higher volumes and lower cost purchasing, and lowering wages and salaries. Conversely, regionalization may lead to diseconomies of scale resulting from higher transportation expenses because of longer bus routes, overall increases, leveling up in staff salaries because of seniority and or contract renegotiations, and increases in the number of mid-level administrators and administrative support staff. While it seems apparent that the closing of school buildings will reduce cost savings, are limited because they may not be biased for the facility. The facility still must be maintained by the school district. Remember Kennedy School, 18 months dormant until Mr. Brown took it and finally rented it, so we have some income. Aside from capital expenditures, and largest portion of the school budget goes to employee salary and benefit, with most expenditures being at the school level, but district size can also contribute markedly to spending. As researcher Timothy Zimmer stated, the larger a district becomes, the more resources are devoted to secondary or non-essential activities. Expenditures on administrators are both positively and negatively linked to enrollment. However, there comes a tipping point at which expenditures on administrators begin to increase disproportionately with more student enrollment. In 1999, a report from the New Jersey Assembly Task Force on School District Regionalization concluded sharing administrative services does not necessarily cut costs, because as personnel begin to take on regional-wide responsibilities, it often becomes necessary to hire more staff to support them. Mr. President, the members of this council definitely had the best interests of the people and the students of Middletown when they rejected the regionalization proposed by the Newport School District, and I urge this council not to change its mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verse. Anybody else? Council Lombardi.
First of all, I'd like to know where the petition is. Can we get copies of it? I haven't seen it. Yeah, I want to see the petition. I want to see the signatures.
Well, she has to verify it.
Have you done it?
They're not going forward for
Oh, okay.
It's the only time you need to be verified, if you're gonna put it to the General Assembly.
We did not want to subject the town clerk's office to the time and energy required to verify those signatures.
Mr. Adams, you already had your time at the mic.
I know, I'm just letting you know for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to see it.
Okay.
That's number one.
Just want to see.
I just want to see the petition, and I want to see the signatures.
I think it was done online,
I
wasn't
want
it?
to
So
see
aren't
it.
they just typed in?
I want to
Oh, was
see
it?
it. I want to see a hard copy.
Is there an issue with him seeing it, Mr. Solicitor? Is there an issue with Council Lombardi seeing?
They keep
well,
referring to
seeing the
1,000
petition?
signatures.
She wants to see a sample. Could she just give him one sample so he could just look?
Not
through it?
tonight, he can come in and check us
No, I'll
another
come in
time.
and see it, but I want to see it.
So it's first initial, last name, and then it's their address, so I guess the.
It's been presented to the council, so, yeah, I don't see an issue with that.
Okay.
I'll come in,
All right.
I want to see it.
Council Lombardi will come in and check look at the signatures.
And just not just that, I want to see the petition. I want to see how it's worded. I know it's online, Terry, but I want to see the hard copy. The other thing is, I have to say that Council Toronto brought up a good point. Look, having a discussion is not my biggest issue. So just so you know, it's not my biggest issue. But I said from the time that the superintendent of schools from Newport came in here and presented us with no other option than full-blown K through 12 regionalization so that we could get 80.5%, well, what is it, 80.5% reimbursement. They presented us that night with no other options. None. Not unification, that came up later, and nothing. It was all about the reimbursement, and it was all about the city of Newport checking off the check boxes so they could get their application into the state. That's what that was about. And then Portsmouth took the ball and ran with it after we rejected it. And they had their discussion, and they have since decided that they don't want to be bothered. I think some of us up here could have predicted that was going to happen. But with that said, the reason why I have an issue is I always said from day one, I wish Newport had gone to our school committee first and made this presentation to them, and the same thing to Portsmouth, gone to the school committees first, and then came back to us after the people who do the education in this community, who have the responsibility for the school budget, come back to us. Because we just do the bottom line. You all know that. And you know, whether it's perfect or not isn't the point. But that's the way it is. And as some people say all the time, well, they put the cart before the horse. Well, they came to us first. And I think that was a PR move by the city of Newport, to be honest with you, when they should have gone to the educators first. And then you could have come back to us with a recommendation. As it stands right now today, our school committee and the Portsmouth School Committee and the Newport School Committee and the superintendents, I know, have met at least once to discuss collaboration. I don't know if they've had the second meeting yet, but I know they were supposed to have another meeting to talk about collaboration, how they can best help the students of all three communities, especially Newport, to give them more choices, the curriculum and the like. Collaboration. It's something I said the second time that the city of Newport came in front of us. And I challenged the superintendents that were here that night to sit down and talk about collaboration. All I keep hearing about is brick and mortar. But you know what? It's not always about the building. It's about what comes out of the building. I'm not against a new building. To be frank with you, down the road, who knows who'll be sitting up here then, but the fact of the matter is that it's an immediate problem for Newport. Something has to happen, whether it's between all three communities or between us and Newport, and that collaboration piece is one discussion that they're having. They're also going to have a second discussion, I believe. The city of Newport put out an RFP to all 39 cities and towns about tuitioning out their students. For those of you who don't know that, they did. And our school committee voted to respond to that. They're looking into responding to that. Tuitioning out the Newport kids. That's a discussion that they're having. And this discussion should also be on their table. I got no problem dealing with it down the road, but you know, at the end of the day, we're always talking about let the educators educate, and let the school committee deal with their responsibilities when it comes to the school department. And then the state of Rhode Island, they're autonomous, they're separate. Now all of a sudden, it's in our lap, and not theirs. It belongs in theirs first, not here. It's backwards. And I would suggest, Mr. Adams, that you get yourselves on the docket for the school committee and put it in front of them. And let's hear what they think. I want to hear what they think. It concerns me that they have, for some reason, you haven't been in front of them yet. And I don't know why, but you need to go in front of them. The comparisons to Massachusetts, honestly, it's apples and oranges. In Massachusetts, the right to an education is in their Constitution. It's not in Rhode Island. That's a big difference because it requires them to fund education differently in Massachusetts. It's about 60-40, I could be off a bit, but it's about 60-40 in Massachusetts. 60 the state, 40 the municipality. It's the opposite in Rhode Island. It's reversed. It's not the same. Their requirements for their school systems are more stringent than ours. You see what's happening in Providence? That would have happened 10 years ago in Massachusetts. They wouldn't have waited this long for Providence to fail the way they did. That's the difference between Massachusetts. They've been testing the way they're testing for years. The state of Rhode Island has been through 3 different types of testing that I know of in the last 10 years. I know. My wife worked in the Middletown school system. And it was a bone of contention among the teachers. Because they're constantly teaching to a different test. You want to know why the kids aren't performing well? They're not performing well, or at least up to standards, because it's been convoluted. They haven't had the same test from the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's been different. As you see the same testing system in place, you'll probably see those scores improve. Possibly. Maybe not. But I think you might. So my point is, am I against a discussion? Probably not. Am I against a new GIB building? Probably not down the road. But right now, this discussion's going in the wrong direction, and quite frankly, it's in the wrong place. We need to get some information and feedback back from the school department. That's how I feel right now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Barr.
Mr. President?
Councilor Flynn.
So I just want to weigh in briefly here. There are definitely challenges with that whole topic. You know, Chapter 16, Mr. Viveros, you know, I agree with you. I've actually read it. You forwarded it to me. And it's something that everybody should read before they continue. You know, the fact that Middletown just got a $10 million bond to improve our schools, and we're investing in our schools right now. You know, that we are doing that actively and maintaining our schools. That's an issue. Melding the union contracts would be a big issue in any kind of, you know, step to collaborate or unify. The fact that in Rhode Island, education's not a right, whereas in Massachusetts it is. That's a huge factor under that whole umbrella. But you know, what concerns me, especially following the conversation that we just had about the West Main Coddington, is that we have a very split population in Middletown. A lot of people want unification or want to at least discuss it. A lot of people don't. I think I got 40 emails during the time that it was going on a number of months ago, and they were split. I tallied. You know, it was like 20/20. And that concerns me because, you know, we have to represent everybody. And I myself am undecided. I don't have a crystal ball. There's certainly pros, there's certainly cons. I don't think you know until you get in there and you try to improve on what the downsides have been, you know, of those that have done it before you. But we should use the same evaluation techniques. For instance, you know, our previous conversation, you know, there was no commitment to having a public hearing and having a discussion and investing a little bit of money to get data. And I think that it's inconsistent not to treat other issues the same way when we have populations that desire to move in that direction. I mean, almost equal, I would say. So I just wanted to throw that on the table because I myself am torn, and you know, I don't think there's talk is talk. It doesn't commit us to anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other council would like to make a brief statement?
Sorry.
All right,
Yes.
Vice President.
So Terry, this, I appreciate where you're coming from, but it's not like this hasn't been talked about before.
Well,
This has
you've
been
been around
talked
longer.
about before. So, I'm not opposed to, any discussions, and I wasn't before. I just don't like the fact when we saw the numbers, we had the numbers. So again, when we make decisions, we make them based on numbers. And I make my decisions based on that number, and that number is gonna cost the town of Middletown a lot of money. A lot of money. So what I think we should be looking at, and Janet, I agreed with some of the points, you were well-spoken, and thank you for that. But just because you build a new building doesn't mean you're gonna get a better education. And that's how it came across to me, and that's how it came across to me for the past 5 or 6 years, or 7, 8 years we've been talking about this. And yes, my sister was the first graduated, one of my sisters was the first graduating class of Middletown High School in '63. I just think that, going back to what Rick said, you had a lot of great points about Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and I agree, I believe it is backwards. It is, and Terry, it is not a right. Education is not a right, and it should be. It should be a right. What I think we should be looking at is we should be looking at what Dennis talked about. I don't know, last time we talked about this was, and other councilors talked about it as well, was we should be looking, having discussions. Our focus should be discussions with how we can share those classes. Because I think each community has something to offer as far as classes go. And I think that's the direction that we really should be focused on if we really want to make a big difference. But as far as the numbers go, take a look at the numbers. You wouldn't make that investment in your own house. And as far as I'm concerned, I represent everybody, whether they vote for me or they don't vote for me, and that's fine. I make the best decision for Middletown as a whole, and based on those numbers I saw, there ain't no way that I would support that. But I would certainly support discussion on, let's move forward, because each community does have something to offer, and I do believe that the kids could benefit from that.
Thank you. Welcome. Council Toronto.
Since Paul brought my name up,
I love talking about you.
since we've been in high school.
Since we've been in high school together.
You know, I went to a school committee meeting, and there was a really good presentation done, and Rick, it has to go with the classes or the testing. And there has been improvement in our scores from previous years, and they took the test. About the second year, they've taken the same test. So it's a great presentation. You go online and watch it. Talks about our children and moving them up from a 3 to a 4, and these going from a 3 to a 4, and how we can move our kids. And it really got down to the nitty-gritty of students and how we can move them through the system. It was really a good presentation. I was really happy to hear that. And then there was a presentation also given by a lawyer that represents the school committee on the changes that the state has made recently due to all the changes that have happened in Providence. And they've changed the rules or the authority or the responsibility of the superintendent. They've changed the rules and the responsibilities of principals and of administrative folks. And this is a big change. I forwarded a copy to the council today that you should go and watch this. I've asked to see if we should have the lawyer come and present to us what he presented to the school committee, so we're aware of all the changes that the state's putting on this. And Councilwoman Flynn and I were both at the meeting, and we kept hearing more admin, more training, for the more expenses. I didn't hear one time about how it was going to improve the education of the children. Didn't hear one thing. All I heard was more administration, more training for the principal. The principal's going to take on more responsibility, so we're going to have to pay him more. We're going to have to, the superintendent will be able to do this and not that. And it was just, all I kept hearing was more dollars, and more dollars. They're going to be committed to the administration of our school system. So for the folks out there that are talking about this, you really should dig into this presentation. So I just wanted to put that out there. And For the folks that don't think we're doing unification, we are. We're already unified with special ed. We're unified across the communities for kids coming to our school for classes, and we're going to Newport for classes and so on. So I encourage everyone to get involved in these communication, the issues and the meetings that are going on out there, because you got great feedback and you should share it with the school committees. And then maybe they can come back to us and we can continue the conversation. I'm all for conversations. I'm just not ready to open up the purse strings. Because there's as Paul said, there's a lot of money that's going to have to be accounted for.
Thank you, Councilor Toronto. Just a couple brief comments. I know it came across to a lot of residents that we just didn't want to entertain the idea when Newport came to us. That's not true. In fact, in 2009, we went to Newport, and we asked them to sit down with us. In fact, Councilor Dick Adams at the time and Councilor Barbara Von Villas were the committee that we endorsed to go seek out Newport, to go seek out our neighbors, to go to Portsmouth, and they went to all the communities. They went to Tiverton, they went to everybody. And we were not welcome. They didn't want to hear it. So in 2009, we said to ourselves, okay, we have to plan for our schools, and we have to plan for our future. So we disciplined ourselves. We put a plan together to maintain our schools. Our schools don't leak. We don't have rodents running around our schools. Our schools are warm and our schools are safe. And, you know, we do that because we believe in it. We believe in our children. The issue that I see, personally, we have great teachers. I've gone to a lot of classrooms in Middletown. I've sat with the students, sat with the teachers, read to the students. And we have great teachers. But we have an academic issue. It's not the teachers that can't teach. It's the leadership that can't set an academic policy out. That's where our problem is in the town of Middletown. My perception of it. And I think I can weigh in with a little bit of history and longevity on that. We have an excellent staff of teachers. I talk to teachers all the time, and they're frustrated, they're disgusted. They go to the school committee, and they ask the school committee for help. They tell the school committee how they feel about what's happening in their chosen profession. It was brought up earlier tonight, and I've said it many times. It seems that the only thing that the superintendent and the administration cares about is brick and mortars. It's not it. It should be academics. They should be the teachers teaching. We have, and they have the tools to teach it if they put the right academic criteria in front of them. But they don't. So, again, we didn't just say no. We've been vetting this since 2009, on and off. And I'm sure that it'll continue, and I'm sure that someday that we might be vetting again in these chambers on other times. But right now, and when it came back to us the first time, we went to our finance people and Mr. Brown and said, put a physical impact statement together. How is this going to affect us? How is this going to affect every resident in our town? Because I'm not into bailing out other communities. I mean, I'll be there to help them, but I'm not going to bail them out. Especially when they created their own monsters. By design, when the door was shut in our face, we put a plan together and we held to it. And I'm very proud of the plan that we put together. At not an absorbent cost to our taxpayers. So, all right, that's it. You absolutely may. Mrs. Von Villas, go right ahead.
I don't have a lot to say. Okay. I'd like to commend the members of the Citizens Exploring School Unification Committee for their commitment to improved educational opportunity for Middletown and Newport students. They have not been discouraged by resistance. Their eyes are on the economic future of the area and its dependence on the education and training of the next generation. They've not forgotten the close ballot vote in 2014 when almost half of the Middletown voters supported high school unification. The island economy is still suffering and unlikely to improve without huge changes, many of them dependent on an educated workforce that encourages economic development that will support the region. Almost 1,000 local citizens have added their names to a petition that urges the discussion to proceed. It would be unfortunate if the town council still chose not to talk. We all still hope that at some point Middletown councilors will open their minds and hearts to the needs of our students. However, if they do not, CESU will increase its efforts to bring the possibilities to the voters again in November 2020.
Thank you, Councilor Von Villis. Any other comments? Okay, item number 15, communication of the town clerk and accounts payable clerk. RE, request town council to match employee donations for adopting a family.
Motion to receive said communication and appropriate $500 from the council president's discretionary fund.
Second?
Okay, motion is second. Any further conversation?
Yes, Mr. President?
Councilor Santos.
And something else? The collection of food that you said you were going to remark on?
Well, why don't you take that opportunity and take the words out of my mouth and go right ahead.
No, you do it. You're the president. And you
Okay.
Speak, and you speak much
Okay,
better than I.
this really wasn't the right time, but, Council, I'll entertain your suggestion.
Thank you.
We want to take an opportunity to thank the people that donated food at the food stations that we had here at the town hall and at our other public buildings, because it went to some people that truly needed it. And I hope and I hope you, and those of you that donated, made somebody's life a little bit better on Thanksgiving. So for that, we thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question. So the town hall in their memo raised $600 and asked us to match it. We're only putting 500. Huh?
Should be 6.
Okay, okay. So I'd like to amend the motion to $600.
Second.
Okay, we have an amended motion to make a $600 contribution. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item number 17. Memorandum from myself, the Vice President, Councilor Henry Rick Lombardi, and Councilor Toronto in regards to tax proposal. And the reason, before we receive this in, we put this on, and I say we didn't sit down in a group and have a quorum of 4 of us, okay? But I put this on the docket after talking to the Vice President, and I said, you know something? Councilor Toronto has some good ideas, Councilor Lombardi has some good ideas. Paul and I felt that we both had some good ideas we'd like to share, so I said, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put this on the docket, which I did. I called everybody up, let everybody know that I was gonna put this on, got their approval to attach their names to it, saying, okay, let's put it on the docket so we can discuss it and just come up with some ideas and maybe batter a few things back and forth. We're not gonna come up with a tax plan tonight, but we can start a process and maybe take some good points and bad points and start moving stuff around.
Mr. President?
What?
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilor Flynn.
I just have to say, you know, the 4 out of 7 confused me when I first saw it. And I didn't know how to prepare for this at all. So you're gonna have this brainstorming session because you guys knew that's what it was, and I really didn't, so I feel.
True.
So
Well,
I
you're gonna
thought-
know after tonight. We're not settling nothing tonight. This is just the making of a brainstorming session.
Okay,
So everybody have ample opportunity to put their thoughts together.
Let me just finish,
Go ahead.
because I just want to remind the counselors that in our rules of the council, item number 29 actually says, if I could just read it.
Yep, go ahead.
All items of business for council docket shall be filed with the council clerk not later than 12 p.m. on Tuesday prior to the following Monday meeting of the council. All items so submitted shall be specific in nature, setting forth in at least one paragraph the exact topic to be considered. The council clerk will review each item to determine its acceptability and will consult, if necessary, with the council president concerning same. So I think a little more detail.
Okay, we
It's good
appreciate
for the
that.
public and good for the fellow councilors.
Thank you. Vice President, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so kind of what Bob said, we had spoke on the phone, after the tax revenue meeting. There was some good ideas that came out of that. Actually, some of these ideas tonight, a couple of them came from that. And then, you know, Dennis had some good points, even though I didn't support it, with his tax proposal. Rick had good points in his proposal with the homestead. Some of that discussion's gonna come out of there tonight. And then, you know, we said, you know, it just felt like the work that those folks had done, we didn't wanna just go, okay, this is us, and we came up with this, because we didn't. We came up with the ideas how to put it together, came up with ideas from the public, and that's what's gonna be presented tonight. Because I did get a call from Mr. Santos and said, what's it, the guys against the girls here? And I said, no, it's not like that. So I explained it to her on the phone, just like I just explained it just now. Even though I didn't think about that, and I said, yeah, you're right, it kind of does seem like that, doesn't it? But that's not it at all.
Okay, you want to
Go
lead
ahead,
it?
go ahead.
Okay, does any council want to start with any thoughts or ideas about what we should be thinking about for the future, about a potential tax proposal? We're not going to iron this out tonight. These are just throw some thoughts out tonight, and let's talk a few things, and let's come back at a later date and redefine something.
I'll look in my computer. I might weigh in yet.
I do, if you're
Okay,
gonna open
go
it
right
up.
ahead, yes.
So one of the things that was brought up was, you know, maybe there should be a separate tax rate, tax levy for folks that don't live here full-time, versus the ones that do. Because as we become more of a second-home community, I think it's important that, you know, there's a potential way to generate more revenue, not to penalize those folks, but they're not full-time residents. And so, even though they do pay their taxes, we just think that, I actually had looked at this years, I don't know, Sean, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. I think I told the story last time when my cousin moved into, bought our second home in Vermont, and the neighbor came out and thanked him because that extra revenue they generate from full-time residents there goes towards education, funding education. So that was one of the ideas that had come out of it. I don't know if you guys have any other ideas. I know that there's a few more as far as.
One of the things that I thought about, and we batted around, and I'm not saying we collectively together, there wasn't that kind of a conversation. It was just ideas that have come out as we've talked through these tax proposals for the last couple of years, is that we have to think about tiering our taxes a little bit, like Paul just suggested, with the people that don't live here full-time, that they pay maybe at a different tax rate than the people that reside here full-time. Almost like a homestead type thing. You live here full-time, this is your residence full-time, you should pay at the least amount of tax rate. You should be the lower end. You should get the most tax relief because you live in your house, you're there full-time. We also, my thoughts have been, and I brought this up at the last council meeting, if you own a piece of property in the town of Middletown, and you don't live in it, and you rent it, and you're getting income from it, you should be taxed at a commercial rate. I'm not saying rezone the property to commercial. I'm saying you should be taxed at a commercial rate. By rezoning something which you wouldn't need to do, you're opening the door for any other business coming in. But if you have a home and you rent out of that home, whether it be a room or you have a house that you rent, then you should be paying at a commercial tax rate. You are generating revenue. You are generating a lot of revenue. You know, we talk about these Airbnbs, how we want to track them and try to make some sense or try to figure out how many are around. How many annual rentals do you think some people have out of their homes every year? They don't go on Airbnb. They don't have to go out there advertising for it. They have the same clientele that come back on a continual basis. All this tax revenue that we lose, potential tax revenue, which would help offset a lot of our potential tax problems down the road. So those are some of the things. Rick, some of your suggestions, and Dennis afterwards, some of your suggestions from before. And again, we didn't sit down as a quorum, and I know there's people that want to talk about this, but, we didn't sit down as a quorum. These are just ideas that just through passing conversation that we've talked about over the last couple of years, we listened to the tax proposals. Go ahead, Rick.
So you've certainly touched on a couple of the subjects that I was going to talk about. One of them obviously was some type of, we keep using the word homestead, but I just want to take care of the people that live here full time. I don't care what you call it. It makes no difference. A name is a name. The tiered tax rate, the taxing of rental properties at a different rate as opposed to the full-time residents is very appealing. They do it in other places. And I think it works. I got to tell you that, when you talk about the short-term rentals in particular, I sit as the council rep on, the Newport County Tourism Visitor Bureau and whatnot, and I just got something today from Evan Smith that Congress is demanding answers from Airbnb about their misleading practices on the way they do listing and hosts. And it's an interesting article, which I'll forward to my fellow councilors tonight. I just got it a little while ago. But all I'm saying is that there are people making a lot of money in this town off of tourism, and they're renting their properties out, and they don't live there. They're absentee landlords. Our neighborhoods are going dark. Okay, there's quality of life issues that are going on, and we need to address that. And you know what I think? I think maybe if you tax them at a commercial rate, maybe there'll be less people going out there and doing Airbnb, and maybe the inventory of long-term rentals will increase, because right now there's less of them than really we need. There's not enough inventory out there. Our young families that want to live here, that can't afford a mortgage, can't find rentals that are affordable. And I've talked to realtors, and realtors will tell you it's not about the tax rate that drives whatever they're paying for these rentals. It's what the market will bear. That's what drives the rental properties. And you talk to more than one realtor, and they're all consistent about that piece of it. They're inconsistent about other things, but they're very consistent about it's about what the market will bear. So I think maybe what we ought to do, and Bob said he likes workshops, I'm thinking maybe we should have some type of workshop where we can, once we've all put our collective heads together, have a public hearing, get everything out on the table, and let's see what we come up with. I think we can do a pretty good job at the end of the day. I think we can come up with something that will work. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we may be able to do this by ordinance and not have to send it upstate. We might be able to do it, I think, Peter?
Yes.
It depends
it's
on,
possible.
there are
Depends
some
on what it
options,
is.
there are
Depends
some
how we do it,
options
but
that
if we
would,
get creative,
there are
I think
some
we can
options
do
that
it.
would be allowable under the current state law, and some would require legislation.
I don't want to rely, kind of like Paul in a lot of ways, I don't want to rely on the people in the State House. I want to control our own destiny with this. And let's see if we can do it, and do it on our own.
I'm starting to like you.
Hey, Paul, I took a page out of your book on that one. All right, thanks.
Okay. So that's who we are tonight. Councilor Torno?
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, I've done a lot of homework in this area for tax reform, and I appreciate the council, recognizing that there's a need for tax reform in Middletown to keep it affordable. And, the Tax Exploration Committee took in a lot of different scenarios in reference to how we might be able to resolve what we were charged to do, and that was to make it more predictable, more fair, more transparent. And we've looked at the homestead. We've talked about different rates. Each of those have pluses and minuses to them. But the one thing I will stick to is whatever we decide, we have to come up with a solution that stops forcing people out of their homes. Because by increasing, the changing of the mill rates will help the long-term residents and the seniors, which we're all in agreement we want to be able to do, but it will not affect the unpredictability of someone's assessment going up because of who moved in next door. Not going to fix it. So I'm looking to hear from this council what their resolution is to stop forcing people out of their homes. It's not the people that are moving in that are getting forced out. It's the people in the middle who are living next to these million-dollar homes that are being built. And it's just a matter of time before that person who's on a fixed income says, to heck with it. I can't rent my house out because they're going to tax me for that for a B&B. And I'm on a fixed income, and someone just built $1 million home next to me, and now my taxes are going up, and I can't afford to stay here any longer. So the heck with it, I'm out. And it's happened. And what happens? Contractor moves in, knocks the house down, or turns it into a B&B. They got deep pockets, they don't have a problem with it. I'm not worried about the people who are coming in here who have deep pockets. I'm worried about the people who can't afford to live here, the full-time residents, any longer. They pick up shop, they go to Florida, they leave. So I'm really excited about tax reform, as you know, and I'm happy that we're going to have a workshop and try to figure that out. I don't know where everyone was for the 2.5 years that we were meeting on this. I don't know where everyone was, but now I guess it's the time to fire it back up.
Okay, we have a number of people in the audience that signed up to talk. We'll start with the way they came in. Valerie Gill.
Thank you. Valerie Gelb, 94 Shore Drive. Tax reform always was about how do we allow people to remain in their home. And it started with one of the elderly ladies in our neighborhood who couldn't afford to live there anymore. So now what happened? Poor thing died, house torn down. Now we have a $3 million house put up. So I've heard a lot from a lot of different people about saying this was Dennis Toronto's tax reform, this wasn't Middletown's. People forget that this subcommittee was formed, at least my understanding, by the town council, not by Mr. Toronto. I've also heard realtors say that holding valuations, like you said, Mr. Lombardi, they all have different things they say, but holding valuations and then increasing taxes for new homeowners is unfair. But what we had looked at with tax reform is that if you held valuations taxed based on that, then people who are coming in, they know exactly what their taxes are going to be. How is that any different than them coming in today and buying a home and knowing what their taxes are? But today, it could go up exponentially. For my own personal, it went up 36% in 1 year. But I happened to hit the revaluation period. So for new homeowners, you know exactly what you're getting into. So I think people often forget two sides of the equation. I think the town council's done a very good job in trying to keep the mill rate, right, reasonable and not having it go up so much. Where's the issue, where the issue has come in has really been on that valuation side of it. And to Mr. Toronto's point, with new homes being built and raises the value. So that's just something we need to consider under tax reform. Another misnomer and misinformation, I think that's spread by some in the audience as well as some town council members, is that the school budgets would be greatly impacted negatively by tax reform. It depends how you do it and in what ways you do it. So I think that's really important. And in the, having read the entire RIPAC valuation several times, that option 3 actually would allow town council the ability to increase taxes to the limit that Rhode Island allows if necessary. I guess Ms. Von Villas has something. So no matter what the tax reform option is given, there has to be this pressure relief valve and make our town accessible to real people. Families want to move in here. It's a great place to be. But they also, families, I've never lived in a community where so many people, they're in their grandparents' home, whatever, but they rent it out because that pays the taxes. So they go sleep on a couch somewhere and surf, couch surf. So I think we have to take that in consideration. They really do.
Borrow that.
Yeah, no, it's really, it's scary. But the other thing, the tier taxes, the only thing in some of the research I've done, and Mr. Reagan is the expert on this, but it may be better to do a discount against, for us that are full-time citizens here, residents here, taxpayers, that perhaps it's a discount against the mill rate or discount against the valuation. That way you don't have to, poor Mr. Durgan doesn't have to keep track of all these different tiers. So, excuse me, so that there's just a lot of different options, but those are just some that I thought of. And I'm really concerned, and all my profession has always been the unintended consequences, right? Of raising tax rates and making it more for commercial, less for this person, that person. So I think a lot of discussion needs to take place.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Viveras, Anton Viveras, who's been patiently waiting.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Anton Viveras, 110 Indian Hill Road. When I hear about some of the conversation, if I'm a full-time resident in Middletown, getting the exemptions because I'm a full-time resident, I qualify my age, so on and so forth, and I decide to buy a house somewhere where it's warm, so I can spend 4 or 5 months in warm climate, you're going to charge me more taxes? I pay my taxes to Middletown on the property that I have here. You're going
Mr. Viveras, these are just ideas being
no,
thrown out.
I know they're
There's
right. I know
nothing
they're
etched in
I know
stone.
they're ideas,
Okay.
Mr. President. But I sit there and I say, what are we talking about? Picking winners and losers. That's what government does best. They like to pick winners and losers. Okay? We met for almost 2 years, almost every month, for 2 years. No council showed up to give their ideas at that point. All of a sudden, they're going to take charge, and they're going to take charge. The Tax Exploratory Committee formed by the Middletown Town Council in 2016 met monthly for almost 2 years to establish an alternative, fair, and predictable property tax method which treats all property owners, residential and commercial, equally. That's not what you want to do. It would calculate general property taxes for residents and businesses property based on their December 31st, 2019 property assessment. It capped annual increases of property assessments at 2% per year and prevented sharp increases, which you have no idea, you're not doing that at all, in property valuations during revaluation, especially during revaluations, or if one neighbor sells their home and the new owner rebuilds it doubling its assessment or to market value, yours will not be affected. This would create a two assessment system, one for market value, let the market distinguish whatever it's worth, and one that property owners would be taxed on and would not affect the town's bond weighting. But the majority of the council rejected it, seeing that figures showed the town averages an increase of 2.1% in the last 10 years. I am recommending setting real property assessments at the December 31st, 2019 property assessments and increasing it annually by the Consumer Price Index, CPI, with a cap of 3% per year. If the cap CPI is less than town needs to fund the town, the mill rate can be raised to make up the difference, but together shall not exceed the 3% cap. This will not affect the town bond rating, and again, create two assessment system, one for market value and one that property owners would be assessed at and pay taxes on. It would also prevent sharp increases in property valuations, especially during revaluation. Protecting what you want to do, protect the seniors from being forced out of their home as the council seems to be so concerned about. I hope the council would reconsider their vote and accept the Tax Exploratory Committee proposal and amend it to include my recommendations. As Council Rodriguez has said, he didn't know what, but the council needs to do something. So the way I see it, here is your chance. Don't let it slip away. And do what you know deep inside has to be done. But for some reason, you resist this, come heck or high water. All this talk about picking winners and losers, charging this one over here more taxes than that one over there because he's not here. There was a person that lived here, that had a house here all year, lived in Florida, collected all their exemptions, but when he came back, it was argued to give him the exemptions instead of the 5-year.
I gotta do this. This is the second time he's done this. This is the
That's
second
right,
time.
and that forces me.
He still has the floor.
Let him finish. I'm gonna
I
address
got
it.
9 seconds. That forces me.
That's not what happened.
You want to treat everybody the same instead of picking winners and losers, and that's exactly what governments do.
Thank you, Mr. Viveras, for your perception. Lawrence Frank. Lawrence?
Lawrence Frank, 8 O'Donnell Road, Middletown. As an aside, couch surfing is an international event, and you can find it online.
For the Olympics.
I have spoken previously.
Could you repeat what you just said?
I would say couch surfing is an international
Oh, couch surfing.
couch surfing,
Okay.
which some of you have never heard before.
Thank you.
Okay. I have spoken previously suggesting alterations to the property tax structure in Middletown. These included taxing all income-generating properties at commercial tax rates, an increased rate for second homes occupied less than 6 months a year, and a reduction in the rate for year-round residents, homeowners, who do not receive any rental income from their properties. This should just be the beginning. Recently, Jersey City, New Jersey, responding to the invasion of Airbnb rentals, passed legislation requiring the owner of any short-term rental property to live on the premises. This has promise not only for Middletown, but for the state as well. Such an approach here will diminish the problems associated with Airbnb-type rentals, including disregard for community and diminishment of social fabric. There are less obvious benefits as well. The 2020 census is coming soon. At a recent meeting of the Middletown Democratic Committee, Senator DePalma pointed out that for each short-term rental, for each Airbnb rental, none of the occupants would be counted towards the population of Middletown. State funding for Middletown is based on population. Federal funding for the state is based on population. And just as crucial, the number of members we have in the House of Representatives is based on population. It should be clear that the problems associated with Airbnb is not just how they disrupt the lives of Middletown residents, they will also affect the long-term financing of the town and state, as well as our political representation in Washington. Change is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Council Lombardi.
So this is the second time in 2 meetings that Mr. Viveras has misrepresented the facts. I'm not going to call you a liar, Antone, but you know what? It's pretty getting damn close, okay? When we took on that issue, this council unanimously voted to change that piece of the ordinance. And the reason was, one example, I'll give you the one example, because it's the one I used. Blatantly, I'm not gonna say it was unfair, but it was, this is what the situation was. This person had a home in Middletown, raised his family here. His family still lives here. He raised his children here. His children live here. He kept his home. He maintained his home. He moved to Florida for the winter months because he could. He never rented out his home and made profit off it, although he probably could have. Paid his taxes, gave up his senior exemption, took the homestead down in Florida, which he did, but he wasn't getting the benefit of anything here anymore, but he still paid his taxes. He still came back here and lived here. He still contributed to our community. A 60-year resident of this town. And when he came to me, I'm going to tell you what he said. He said, Rick, I don't think it's fair that my family's been here for over 60 years. My kids have gone to the schools here. I've supported the schools. I've been involved in town activities, and my family has been for all those years. And I gave up my senior exemption, and now that I'm not healthy anymore, I need to come home. I need to be here because I can't be there anymore. And you know, he said, I have to wait 5 years. He said, if I had sold my home and moved to Florida full time and then came back, he goes, I get it. I don't mind waiting the 5 years. But I didn't sell my home. I stayed here. I kept my home here. I paid my taxes. And I came back here to live 4 months, 5 months out of the year. And just what he said to me, he goes, I may not see 5 years. And you know what? He didn't see 5 years. He died about a month and a half ago. And he did get his senior exemption back because we thought enough to change it. Because there are other people out there that may face that exact same situation. Those are the facts. Those are the facts that you misrepresented twice. You tacked my name to it the first time. And I'm going to tell you, I don't appreciate it. You do it all the time, Antone. You come up here and you misrepresent the facts. The president has told you before in public not to do that. And you continually do it.
I didn't understand the facts.
You did misrepresent the facts.
All right, okay.
You want to charge that man right now.
Oh, gentlemen.
Anybody that does the same thing he does, you want to charge him extra taxes.
I did not say that, and that's
All right.
not true.
All right, we're going to end this. Whoa. We're going to end it. Okay.
Mr.
Don't lie.
President,
Okay.
Mr. President, may I ask a question?
Does that have to do with farmlands?
No.
Something different? Go ahead.
Well, maybe I should shut up?
No.
Okay.
Ask the question.
I just want to clarify something. I own a home, I'm a resident, I'm registered, correct? I go down to Florida for 6 months. I do not rent my home out to anybody. How will I be taxed?
To be decided at a later date.
It could be registered voter here, it could
Well,
be...
no, I listed the facts. I'm a registered voter here. I don't register down in Florida. I vote from here. I do not rent my property. How is my property going to be taxed? Same as usual, right?
Should be.
Okay.
My feeling, that would be only my feeling.
So
But
long
these are
as,
things
so
we're not
long as
making
you
these
are,
decisions tonight.
A registered
so long
voter.
as you're here in Middletown for, around for 6 months and a day.
Okay, 6 months and a day. All right, my other question is, if someone has a home, they go down to Florida for 6 months, they rent the home for 6 months, how are they going to be taxed?
Full-time
To
resident.
be determined.
Okay, that's all I wanted to
To be determined.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
President, can I just make one comment?
Councilor Toronto.
Again, I appreciate the tax reform. One thing you got to keep in mind is the administration of this. You know, whatever we decide to put in place, we have to administer. We have a hard enough time finding who's doing what. We're not even, you know, who's renting, who's doing full-time rentals, who's doing part-time rentals, who's here full-time, who's not here full-time. So whatever we come back with, we need to keep in mind that it has to be able to be administered, okay? So I just want to put that out.
Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just wanted to first address your suggestion. These are just suggestions.
Suggestions.
Brainstorming, anything could happen, where you said that if you're renting a place in your home on your property, it should be taxed at the commercial rate. And you know, I just wanted to relay when my husband and I first got married and bought our house together. It was a duplex in Newport. And you know, the bank actually accounted for the rental income for us to pay that mortgage, because we were dirt poor. We had one car. I mean, so I just think that, so your suggestion that, you know, maybe commercial rates for renters, maybe if it's, you know, a second home or not owner occupied, it might be more appropriate, because there are people, you've heard it from the floor, people are using that owner occupied to pay their taxes or to meet that mortgage because they're just starting out, and it's very difficult here on the island.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to throw that
No.
out there for discussion.
And again, this is just conversations.
That's why I'm throwing it out. So, I did go back at the April 15th meeting. I had requested a docket item based on a neighborhood stability conversation, and noted that the council discussion should include relief mechanisms that would promote neighborhood stabilization and increase Middletown's year-round resident population for neighborhood and community health. So whatever tax program we put together, you know, those might want to be goals. I did mention tiered tax, and maybe a second home flat fee. I know some communities do that. If you have a second home in town, or you're out of town, it's just a flat fee, you know, and you could even make it dedicated. This is a flat fee and it's gonna go to education or whatever you wanted to. I also noted at that meeting, the response to, or the elements of the homestead. And I just wanted to remind you that with the homestead, that because it goes to everybody, it also, Middletowners like myself who might not need that relief would also qualify for relief. And so it's not as targeted as a tax relief might want to be. And a homestead also will add tax burden in the form of higher taxes to all resident and commercial businesses. And it's also not very predictable. So there are some downsides that I think need to be put on the table as we are deciding what to do. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank
On the
you.
fly.
What I think I'm gonna do is, and I think it was the intention of all of us, because we knew we weren't gonna decide anything tonight, on the, maybe on the next docket, Madam Clerk, or the docket after, I know we've kinda backed up with Christmas and the holidays coming. Maybe maybe the January docket, I'll put a communication in, for us to decide on some workshop dates. So we'll decide on some workshop dates, and we'll invite the public to attend. I know we have a workshop in January, so this might go out past January, maybe into February. We'll get some workshop dates, and we can collectively sit down with the public and, you know, throw some ideas back and forth.
We're not going to send it to RIPAC, are we?
It's
Just want to check,
It's
because
gonna be an
we'll
ordinance.
be here for 15 months.
We are moving forward.
Okay.
Just want to make sure.
All right. So let's move forward, since I'm looking up at the clock, and we don't have a lot of time. Okay. So, having said that, number 19, communication of Council of Toronto, discussion with the school department that Beyond the Bell Middletown Public School Extended Learning Opportunities Program.
Motion to continue to the December 16, 2019 regular meeting of the council.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Now, we'll
Excuse
act
me.
on item number 3.
Excuse me, was there any conversation on that?
I thought we just continued.
Well, I didn't know we were continuing it.
Okay, go right ahead.
Well, I was just, are we continuing because they couldn't make it?
Exactly. Do you want them here? Would you like to
Yeah,
discuss
no,
it
I'd like
tonight?
them to be here, sure.
Well, that's why we continued it, because they
Okay.
were not available to come here tonight.
I didn't understand, so, okay,
The
thanks.
communication went out, though. Did you see the email?
No, I didn't.
Okay, all right.
I gotta get rid of my full-time job.
Okay. Okay, so we'll continue that. That's on for the 16th. They've been notified for the 16th. Okay, at this time, we'll act on item number 3 per the earlier motion. Item number 3 is a communication of Council of Toronto, request an update from the town administrator on all approved CIP projects and a status on each project.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second?
A motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Council of Toronto.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sean, thanks for, we have a list of the CIP projects here. And this kind of was stemmed off the last meeting where we were looking for revenue to fund other projects. I think it was we were talking about the senior center. And we said we probably would have to take the money from some other project. And so I asked to get a list of projects that actually have been approved under the CIP. And it looks like there's probably close to 50 CIP projects that are approved. And so some are not started. We've got some in 2018 that haven't been started, 19 that haven't been started. So I just think this is an important list that we're able to maintain and prioritize, you know, what we're working on. Because again, it kind of came back to, you know, we designate projects when we do the budget for CIP, but that doesn't necessarily mean those projects are going to get done. If we don't start them, we can take that revenue and put it towards something else. So I don't understand, I guess my question is, why do we have to name what the project's going to be for? Why don't we just have the CIP and the different funds that are available to fund it, and then we, as we go forward, and I know there's things we need to maintain. I know there's things on here that we need to continue to look at. So I guess that's more of a question of, is that a charter amendment? I believe that we have to actually name projects for the CIP in the budget process.
I don't even
I
understand
think
what
that
we're
was,
talking
I
about.
think that was done with the purpose of trying to define, instead of just putting one clump of CIP money, that we try to define where they were projected to go.
Well,
No, I don't actually even think, the capital improvement program is a standard practice of municipalities throughout the entire country. There's an expectation, it's an expectation that was here before I got here, that a community has a 5-year plan to look at capital projects that it will undertake. And that's a standard practice that's looked at by Moody's, anyone who's going to invest in the town through the issuance of debt. This is used by the state to look at what we're using money for. You have to have a capital plan. You need to look at your long-term borrowing plan. So, and you need to prioritize the work. It's not, you know, I guess, you know, we're sort of being flip about trying to find money to fund projects as they come along, but there's a plan, and while there are some projects that are listed on here that haven't started, and I'll just use one from 2019, road safety improvements, Greenan Avenue, Paradise, Third Beach. That's the capital portion of the plan. You know, basically funds that are set aside to implement safety improvements on Greenan Avenue, Paradise Avenue, and Third Beach Road. The council's reviewed Third Beach Road, Greenan Avenue. The council wants the north end to be revisited by the consultant. Paradise Avenue, we're waiting for a vote from the RIDOT Historical Roads, you know, area. You know, again, the $150,000 is set aside. It's indicated is not started on here, but we're holding on to it for a reason, you know, and basically that's the prioritization of the safety improvements. So I'm a little bit confused by the discussion. It sounds like we're not going to list projects. We're just going to have a bucket and then just take money out of it. Is that, because that doesn't make any sense to me. Nor have I ever seen that as a practice in government or in corporate America. So I don't really understand where we're headed with this.
No, my understanding was when people talked to me about the capital improvement program last budget session, we were told that you have to identify projects to match the amount that is going to be in the CIP. So people had to come back and say, hey, I think I need, you know, we're going to dedicate 1.250 million in paving Second Beach parking lot. So that's $1,250,000.
That's the estimate that was calculated by the town engineer.
And that was put in the CIP, and it was approved.
Correct.
Are we doing that?
We are looking at that now through the different meetings that have taken place during the summer. We're looking at alternatives to the peel and pave, basically not spending as much money on the project. We're looking at something that costs less. That's based on recommendations from the Road and Utilities Committee as well as the Beach Commission. And currently the town engineer is looking at design of the entrances so that we can minimize changes. Again, those are recommendations made by the Beach Committee. But yes, we are working on it. We may not spend that much money, but you know, and that's always the goal, is to try to find options or opportunities for value engineering to reduce the cost.
So if we come up with something else that's $400,000, there would be $850,000 left over.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that go?
It stays in the capital replenishment fund, which is the source of funds.
And it could be used for whatever we decide to use it for.
Correct.
Okay. And even on this list here that I'm looking at, just real quickly, because I just got it this week, I don't see anything on there for sure. Am I missing something for, I'm sorry, the park, Dunlop Park?
Dunlop Park, I don't understand.
I don't see any line item in here for the Dunlop Park. And we have over $100,000 allocated towards it, and I think in previous years.
Gentlemen,
we
this
had
is
that.
good conversation.
I don't
And,
understand.
you know,
I just-
No, but I'm just looking at the clock.
Yeah.
Okay? And, so, I don't know, if we're gonna go line item by line item, maybe this
No.
is something we can have.
You know what, I've been working at getting a list of projects
You got it.
that needs to get done, right? And I get this list, and it's not complete.
It is complete. I take
Okay, I'll
exception
go
to
through it.
that.
I just got it, so maybe I'm incorrect.
I only
on
was
that.
asked within the last week to produce it. You know, the production of this list doesn't follow the council rules, which is what I
Mark's been
brought to
working
the
on this
attention of
with
the
me.
council president.
I've been working with Mark on this probably for
I
a
got
couple
this
months.
request with the docket on Tuesday. The council rules say that I'm supposed to have the request a meeting prior to it actually being requested, yet I was told to put it on the docket. It's on the docket. So, you know, the fact that you just got it, I just got the request, and we turned this around over the holiday weekend so that this can be a productive, cooperative discussion and not an accusation that the list is incomplete or a suggestion that we're going to follow a municipal practice that makes no sense, that would actually be bad for the town. So I don't
know if anyone said it was bad for the town. We're just trying to understand
exactly
what
what I
capital
was asked to
improvement
do,
program.
which is to provide a reconciliation of the capital improvement program with the outstanding projects to what has actually been budgeted.
Councilor Santos.
Mr. Brown, may May I rack your brain a minute?
Sure.
The Middletown Historical Society, on the windmill, what you got, the smallest amount in there, 34, 35. What are you planning on doing at the windmill?
When the budget was adopted, from the Jacobs report, there was money identified for work that needed to be done on each one of the Preservation Society buildings. The council set that money aside so that as those repairs come forward, there's money available so that the buildings can be preserved. Up until this point, the practice has been that the historical societies come to the town without any planned maintenance, and then we've had to basically, you know, search for the money, which
Okay.
is, I think, part of what Councilor Toronto is
May
bringing
I
up, is that, you know, there is no identified sources of funds for these capital/maintenance projects.
May I offer a suggestion? Take that 34, 35 out of there.
Well, it was identified for a reason, correct?
Well, through that, with Jacob's report, and we take care of our own maintenance on the windmill. And what they recommended is not replace the door, that's part of the windmill. Do work on the vanes. We have Andy Schrake from Dennis, Massachusetts, who does all the work on the windmill, and the society pays for it.
Okay. All right, Vice President, you want to make a comment?
Sean, when could you have a full list to the council?
I have a full list of the capital improvement program items that are outstanding with the reconciliation of the general funds in the schedule I presented tonight. That's what I was asked. I've complied 100% with the request of Council Toronto. I
Okay.
would like to request an update on all approved CIP projects and the status of each project. That is a complete document.
Okay, so but a few minutes ago, you got upset because you said we're not following the council rules and...
You aren't following the council rule. I was directed to do this outside of the rule that you adopted for the town business updates.
Is that like the same council rules that, you know...
It's the resolution that you adopted on how town business updates
I understand
will
that,
be
but a
done.
lot of times you put things on the docket after the date as well.
Nope, this is exactly,
And nothing's ever said about it, so if you're in a little tiff about it, I'm just asking if you can work it out. He's saying there's something that's not on there. You're saying you didn't have enough time. All I'm simply asking is,
I
if
understand
that could get resolved, that'd be great, that's all.
I would love to do that, but
Okay.
I'm certain that the outstanding projects from the last two CIPs
Okay.
are identified in the schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Toronto.
And just,
Go ahead.
you're welcome. Just one more thing that's just, again, looking at this as something we have. Sean, I'm not sure if I'm reading this right, but in FY '21, we've identified $17 million in CIP projects. And in FY '22, we've identified $18 million.
I don't have the document you're looking at.
I'm just looking at this
So if
document
that's
here.
what it
This
states,
is the
then
Middletown, so.
The red
It
book.
is what it is. It is
Red book.
17 and $18 million over the next couple of years. So that's, I guess we're gonna, so I just wanna pay attention to this because it's a lot of money. I don't understand, I do see that projects move, and the last meeting we had, we're making a movement to go forward with $300,000. I know we're gonna get some grant or get some money funded, but it wasn't budgeted, and we were going to find the money, we're gonna pull a rabbit out of the hat, and we asked what projects aren't gonna get done, and we haven't received that yet either.
I don't have an estimate from the architect yet on the cost of the project. The structural engineers are scheduled to be at the senior center, I believe, this week to start looking at the project. Once we have a project budget, we'll bring that back forward to
Okay.
the council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item number 20, at the request of Councilor Flynn, resolution of the council, RE, supporting fully funded E 911 statewide and municipal services.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
Motion and second to pass, all in favor?
Aye.
Councilor Flynn, did you want to make a comment?
I guess I would just say that.
I mean, I'm not encouraging you to, but if you'd like to make one, go right
I
ahead.
think acknowledgement where, and recognition is due. I think that the town administrator did a phenomenal job jumping on this safety issue, which is why it was pulled off the consent in the first place, and then, got together with very busy, knowledgeable people, our chief of police and our fire chief, and got the information that he needed, and that was the goal, to fact find on the Johnston resolution, and moved almost as quick as that Veterans Memorial to get this done, and I think that it will benefit many who have need. So I would like to just throw those kudos out.
Thank you. Item number 21, memorandum of the finance director to the town administrator with enclosures RE, municipal financial 3-month ended September 30, 2019.
Motion to receive said memorandum and report.
Second.
A motion second to receive, all in favor?
Aye.
Mark?
Good evening, Mr. President,
3
members
minutes.
of the council.
Good evening.
Good evening,
I'm
Mark.
here to go over the financial results of the first 3 months of this fiscal year, September 30th, 2019. For the general fund, Parks and Recreation Fund, Sewer Fund, and Refuse and Recycling Fund. For the general fund, the total revenues and appropriation of $16,670,000 exceeded the expenditures and appropriation of $15,288,000 by $1,382,000. This is primarily due to the town continuing to have a good, strong tax collection. And in the first 3 months, we've collected 30% of the budgeted current property tax and 61% of the budgeted delinquent taxes. And within the first 3 months, we're also looking at revenues that exceeded expectations. The first is the building permits and real estate transfer taxes. In the following pages, you can find the backup for that on pages 1 through 25. For the Parks and Recreation Fund, the total revenues and appropriations of $1,488,000 exceeded the total expenditures of $1,064,000 by $384,000. Part of the revenue of this fund is the Capital Replenishment Fund, which during the first 3 months was generated of $500,000, which means if you back that capital replenishment revenue out, there would have been a loss of $116,000. And the loss is attributable to the timing of when the revenues are received. Usually May and June, you receive most of your revenues in this fund. I do want to mention the last line in that Parks and Recreation, the balance in the Capital Replenishment Fund is $1,459,000 instead of the $1,016,000 as listed. The backup for the Parks and Recreation Fund are found on pages 26 through 31 on the backup. The Sewer Fund, the total expenditures exceeded the total expenditures of $2,827,000 exceeded the revenues of $1,796,000 of the losses of $1,031,000. This is primarily due to the timing of the revenue that's generated compared to your expenditures of your debt service. You have 2 debt service. One is to the city of Newport for all of their capital, which was, all of this is paid in the first quarter. And you also have all the principal payments for your debt, for the bonds in the sewer fund. They're all come due in the first quarter. So the revenue that's going to be generated through the rest of the year will make up for those, the timing of those payments. The backup for that is found on page 32 through 34. For the Refuse and Recycling Fund, the total revenues of $274,000 exceeded the total expenditures of $185,000 by $89,000. And this is due to the timing of when the revenue is generated in the fund. Right now, we're collecting the revenue for the permits. It's due by the end of November. We did have a good start of the first 3 months. And that backup can be found on pages 35 and 36. Any questions?
Good report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
I just want to.
Go ahead.
I just want to, I know you said it was the first 3 months, first quarter. I just want to make sure the public understands that, because when you hear gains and losses, like some of these, most of it's timing.
Right.
And I just want to make sure that they're clear on that, that's all.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor Santos.
I'm going to direct my question to Mr. Brown. Our finance director remarked about the building permits. Under revenues that exceeded first quarter estimates are building permits. Now, all other departments submit some kind of report to this council. I would like to see a report from the building inspector's office showing what the permits that have been taken out, what they are for, and who took them out, and the cost of the permit and the cost of the construction. Is that a possible thing?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was easy.
That could be done sometime in the month of January for the month of December. Yes?
Say that again?
That could be done, not rushing anybody because of the holidays, done in January for the month of December.
It's a system report, have it tomorrow,
I don't want to rush anybody.
and I'll have it out tomorrow.
Okay. You don't have to do it tomorrow, sir. You're going to be shoveling snow.
No snow here tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mark.
Mark.
Okay, item number 22, email communication of Mark Newkins, resignation from Library Board of Trustees.
Motion to receive said email communication and resignation with regret.
Second?
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 23, communication of Kathy Silvera, resignation from Aquidneck Island Planning Commission.
Motion to receive said communication with regret.
Second?
Motion second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 24, appointment of one member to the Open Space and Fields Committee, term expiring in November 2022.
Motion to reappoint John Eric Nelson to the Open Space and Fields Committee for a term expiring November 2022.
Second?
Okay, any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
With 6 minutes to spare. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, thanks. Thanks, Nate.